The boy took the qualification exam for the martial artist training camp, and he instantly shocked every examiner inside the monitoring room. Because, with only 137 points of vitality, he somehow unleashed a terrifying level of combat power, one that defied common sense and surpassed every so-called genius there. Then the examiners finally pulled up the boy's profile. The strongest grandmaster of the human race was so excited that his entire body trembled. He decided on the spot that he would step in personally and take this monster as his disciple. But what they didn't know was that this boy's name was Su Hong, and the reason he had become this insanely powerful was because he had once been forced into a true dead end during an arena fight. It was also in that very moment that he was unexpectedly chosen by a god and obtained the martial space system. Any martial art he had seen could be practiced under the guidance of his avatar inside that space. That meant 1 second to enter the basics, 2 seconds to master it, and 3 seconds to push it all the way to perfection. After defeating enemies, he could also earn martial points. By spending those points, he could raise his vitality and strengthen his physical talent. But just a few days ago, Su Hong had still been nothing more than an ordinary student among countless martial apprentices in his martial arts class. Sure, he had decent talent for martial arts, but in everyone else's eyes, he was nothing but a full-blown training maniac. And the only reason Su Hong pushed himself so hard was because he wanted to become a real martial artist as soon as possible, so his uncle and aunt could finally live a better life. When he was 3 years old, his parents had died in a beast disaster. His uncle and aunt were the ones who raised him. After learning that he had martial arts talent, they poured everything they had into supporting his training. After all, in an era overrun by ferocious beasts, martial artists were among the most stable and most envied high-income earners. But that day, after Su Hong came home from school, he accidentally overheard them discussing his application for the martial arts exam. His aunt was actually planning to stop taking the medicine she needed to recover her health, while his uncle was going to take on another job, all so they could quickly gather the $30,000 for his registration fee. That left Su Hong feeling terrible. He practiced martial arts to give them a better life, yet now he was making their lives even harder. So he slapped his own cheeks hard, forcing himself to calm down. Then he pushed open the door, pretending he knew nothing. He wanted to take over and help his aunt apply the medicated patches, but his uncle and aunt were worried that he was exhausted from training all day. So they urged him to go back to his room and rest. Lying in bed, Su Hong couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Only one thought remained in his mind. His uncle and aunt had already sacrificed more than enough for him. He absolutely could not let them keep wearing themselves down, and, as a martial apprentice, there was only one place where he could make tens of thousands of dollars in just a few days. The next day, inside the underground martial arena building, Su Hong stepped onto the platform for the martial apprentice first challenge. According to the rules, as long as he won 4 matches in a row, he could take home $60,000 in prize money. Seeing a newcomer dare to enter the first challenge right away, the audience immediately thought he was asking to die. The host didn't care about any of that. He simply told Su Hong to say a few harsh words and fire up the crowd. Once Su Hong realized he was supposed to trash talk and provoke everyone, he immediately shouted at the top of his lungs, "Below martial artist level, I'm invincible. Above martial artist level, I'll trade 1 for 1. Come at me, you weaklings." It was the first time the crowd had ever seen such an arrogant defender. They instantly urged the host to start the match, just so the challengers could get up there and beat this bull-headed idiot to death. But Su Hong wasn't afraid at all. His confidence came from his Vajra fist, which had only recently reached the subtle mastery stage. After all, most martial apprentices were still stuck at the beginner level with their techniques. A subtle mastery technique in this arena was basically dimensional suppression. In this world, martial techniques were ranked across 5 stages: beginner, proficient, subtle mastery, grand completion, and perfection. Soon, Su Hong welcomed his first challenger. The man didn't waste time talking. He coldly said he was going to teach this arrogant brat a lesson. But Su Hong only used a proficient level light subduing palm. And the man was blasted away by a massive force, as if he had been struck by a sledgehammer. In the next second, he crashed straight out of the arena. Just like that, Su Hong easily claimed victory in his first arena match. His opponent in the second match looked a bit stronger, but after taking one punch from Su Hong, the man overextended himself and instantly exposed a fatal opening around his waist. Su Hong didn't miss the chance. He raised his leg and delivered a brutal kick. And just like that, the second challenger followed the first one straight out of the arena. But right as the host announced that Bullhead had secured 2 wins in a row, a figure on the high platform was silently watching everything unfold. This man was the hidden boss behind the underground martial arena. With one glance, he could tell that Su Hong was far stronger than an ordinary martial apprentice. Someone like him, strong enough to crush those below him, but not quite strong enough to threaten the top, was perfect for rigged fights. So he called over his disciple and told him not to expose his identity as a real martial artist. His goal was to subdue Su Hong if possible. At that moment, Su Hong had already won his 3rd match. As long as he won one more, the $60,000 in prize money would be his. But suddenly, the entire arena grew noisy. Su Hong heard the crowd whispering that the next fighter stepping onto the stage was White Fox, someone with the strength of a quasi-martial artist. He immediately sharpened his focus, knowing this next fight would definitely be rough. White Fox, however, only smiled and told him not to be scared, saying he wouldn't go for the kill. As soon as the host announced the start of the final match, both figures blurred and shot forward at the same time. Su Hong had already prepared himself mentally, but the instant their fists collided, the force behind that punch made him realize something with chilling clarity. This guy was not a quasi-martial artist. He was a real martial artist. He had simply been suppressing his aura on purpose. At the same time, White Fox suddenly sped up his punches. Every strike came with 3 explosive sonic booms, forcing Su Hong to retreat again and again. The crowd recognized it as a beginner-level thunderclap fist and immediately cried out that Bullhead was finished. Su Hong knew he couldn't keep going like this. If he didn't find a chance to counterattack soon, he would definitely lose. But then, White Fox's punching speed increased again. In the end, Su Hong could only watch helplessly as White Fox broke straight through his defense. That punch slammed heavily into his body. It blasted Su Hong more than a dozen meters backward. Even his consciousness began to fade rapidly. White Fox took the opportunity to step on Su Hong's head and coldly said that he wouldn't be getting a single cent of the prize money from this match. But if Su Hong agreed to join them and cooperate with the arena's rigged fights, they would still give him the $60,000. If he refused, his ending would be ugly. But as a martial artist, how could Su Hong ever agree to something so shameless? Gritting his teeth, he answered that people like them didn't deserve to call themselves martial artists. White Fox's face darkened instantly. He lifted his foot and kicked straight toward Su Hong's head, saying that since Su Hong refused, he would cripple him and let him become a martial artist in his dreams. Hearing that, Su Hong's eyes snapped open. Becoming a martial artist had always been his dream. There was no way he could fall here. Driven by that fierce will, Su Hong somehow dodged White Fox's deadly strike. White Fox saw Su Hong stand back up, still repeating, "I can't fall here." His face was filled with disbelief. He couldn't understand how this kid had taken a thunderclap fist head-on and still managed to get back on his feet. At that moment, Su Hong thought of everything his uncle and aunt had sacrificed for him over the years. He remembered why he started practicing martial arts in the first place: to give them a better life. And the thought of watching that future turn into nothing was something Su Hong would never accept. But when he opened his eyes again, a screen of light appeared before him, asking what he was willing to give for his family and his faith. Su Hong answered without hesitation, "Everything." In the next second, the world around him suddenly turned unreal. When Su Hong came back to his senses, he was already standing inside a dark palace, and in front of him stood a phantom figure that looked almost like a god. After saying only, "I'll give you this chance," the figure turned into golden light and fused directly into Su Hong's body. Right after that, under Su Hong's stunned gaze, a golden panel lit up with a sharp flash. It not only displayed his attributes and the martial techniques he had mastered, but also showed a mission called Path of the Arena. Out of curiosity, Su Hong opened the mission tab. The mission told him to temper his martial arts here and defeat White Fox, who was still waiting outside. The goal was to raise Vajra Fist to grand completion, while upgrading Light Subduing Palm and Sky Stepping Footwork to subtle mastery. Just as Su Hong was wondering what exactly was going on, a figure slowly began to form behind him. Hearing the sharp whoosh beside his ear, Su Hong reacted instantly and dodged the incoming fist. His heart jolted. Was this his avatar? And it was using Vajra Fist, with movements so clean and precise, they looked straight out of a textbook. But with such a perfect example right in front of him, how could Su Hong miss the chance to learn? What he didn't expect was for the avatar to grab his hand and throw a brutal punch straight at him. After being struck, Su Hong stumbled back several steps. But then he realized that the progress bar for Vajra Fist had increased by 3%. Once he understood that fighting could rapidly improve his martial techniques, Su Hong set his stance again and prepared to continue. As he gave everything he had and clashed fiercely with the avatar, the progress bars for his techniques began rising at an incredible speed. Su Hong went from getting beaten down at the start to slowly taking control of the fight. In the end, he was even able to blast the avatar away with a single punch. Finally, at a certain moment, Su Hong's sky-stepping footwork and light-subduing palm successfully broke through to subtle mastery. His Vajra Fist also advanced smoothly into grand completion. With the mission complete, the avatar instantly scattered into specks of golden light and disappeared. Back in the outside world, White Fox saw Su Hong standing there in silence and assumed he was just putting on an act. So White Fox unleashed Thunderclap Fist again and charged straight at Su Hong. But this time, every single one of his attacks was dodged by Su Hong. And when Su Hong counterattacked, White Fox couldn't react in time at all. As expected, the fox mask on White Fox's face was smashed to pieces in an instant. Seeing White Fox collapse with a muffled groan, the entire audience froze in shock. No one had expected White Fox to actually lose, but compared to the victory, Su Hong cared more about one thing right now. When would he actually get the prize money? As for that, the hidden boss behind the arena did not go back on his word. He just couldn't understand how a mere martial apprentice had trained Vajra Fist to grand completion. Even most real martial artists couldn't pull that off. To figure out the reason, he immediately ordered his men to investigate Su Hong's true identity. Half an hour later, Su Hong was walking home. At the same time, he noticed the tails following behind him. Su Hong didn't give them a chance to get close. He quickly turned into a corner, watching them lose their target and stand there in frustration. Su Hong couldn't help sneering inwardly. Trying to follow him? Not a chance. After they left, Su Hong finally returned home. But when his uncle and aunt saw him take out that much money, they nearly thought he had robbed a bank. Su Hong had no choice but to make up an excuse. He said he had been working as a sparring partner at a martial arts gym, and the owner thought he had talent, so he decided to sponsor his training. With that silver tongue of his uncle and aunt actually believed the nonsense. That night, Su Hong went to his secret base. The martial exam registration fee was now handled, and his aunt's medical expenses would not be a problem for the time being. All of this was truly thanks to the system. Just then, the system notification suddenly rang out, saying that he had defeated an opponent above his level and gained 67 martial points. Martial points could be used to improve vitality and martial techniques. So Su Hong immediately began testing it, adding part of his martial points to his vitality. In the next second, he felt a wave of heat surge through his body. His vitality value shot straight to 90 points, reaching the level of a quasi-martial artist. With that in mind, Su-hong simply poured all his remaining martial points into vitality. Not only did his physical strength improve drastically, but the injuries on his body almost fully healed as well. It felt like endless power was surging through him. To test his current strength, Su-hong headed to the school training field under the cover of night. There happened to be a Tier 1 combat power testing machine there. In that case, he would start with 70% power, but the moment Su-hong punched the machine, he froze on the spot. Oh no. This testing machine was way too fragile. Was he going to have to pay for it? In the next second, an angry shout came from a building in the distance. Which bastard is making noise in the middle of the night? Do you have no sense of public decency? Soon, the principal rushed over in a panic, but all he saw was the broken testing machine. Thinking about who in the school could possibly do something like this, only Chen Shan and Li Tu came to mind. The principal immediately decided that once school started, he was going to teach those two a proper lesson. The next day, inside the gymnasium of Starlight First High, the principal gathered all the martial arts students together. But Su-hong was more curious about why Chen Shan had suddenly been beaten up. After his best friend explained it, Su-hong finally understood. Chen Shan had taken the blame for him. Meanwhile, the principal began introducing his old comrade to everyone. When the students learned that the man he had invited was Chen Tian, a third-rank martial artist, and that he would soon teach them a C-rank martial art called Thunderclap Fist, the entire place erupted. After all, this was their first time seeing a real third-rank martial artist. Su-hong immediately realized that the fist technique White Fox had used before was exactly Thunderclap Fist. Being able to unleash 3 shockwaves with one punch really was impressive. And if someone wanted to learn a C-rank martial art like this outside, the registration fee alone would cost hundreds of thousands. So Su-hong absolutely could not miss this chance. At that moment, Chen Tian spoke up saying he would demonstrate the full technique 10 times. How much they could learn would depend entirely on their own comprehension. As he threw out a punch, Chen Tian began explaining the key points of Thunderclap Fist. This fist technique was fierce and domineering. At the beginner stage, each punch would produce 1 thunderous boom. At proficient level, it could produce 3 booms. At subtle mastery, 5 booms. After reaching grand completion, 7 booms. That was exactly Chen Tian's current level. And once the technique reached perfection, every punch could unleash 9 booms. Just like that, everyone began practicing along with Chen Tian's movements. After several hours in a row, they all collapsed onto the ground, complaining that the fist technique was way too difficult and impossible to learn. Su-hong's best friend, Chen Lin, was also exhausted like a dog. He wanted to ask Su-hong whether he had learned anything, only to turn around and find that Su-hong's spot was already empty. But right after that, Chen Lin was shocked to discover that Chen Shan, the so-called genius, had already reached the beginner stage. Seeing this, the principal immediately recommended Chen Shan to Chen Tian, hoping he could give the school's top genius some guidance. But Chen Tian refused outright, saying that Chen Shan's level would barely count as passing in another city. After that, the two left the gymnasium together, with Chen Tian casually commenting that this batch of students had poor talent and had wasted his trip. The principal was a little speechless, but he also knew how cruel martial arts training was. Without talent and opportunity, hard work alone was nowhere near enough. Just then, a rapid series of thunderous booms suddenly rang in their ears. They followed the sound and realized that someone was practicing Thunderclap Fist on the field. Judging by the uniform, it was one of the students from earlier. What shocked them even more was that when Su-hong threw another punch, the thunderous booms rang out a full 9 times. Chen Tian's entire body began trembling uncontrollably, because he had actually gained inspiration from Su-hong's technique. His Thunderclap Fist, which had been stuck for years, forcefully broke through 8 booms. Overwhelmed with excitement, the two rushed onto the field, desperate to know what kind of monster could train Thunderclap Fist to perfection in just half a day. But when they got close, they found nothing. Because by then, Su Hong was already walking down the street, thinking that since Thunderclap Fist had reached perfection, it was time to find a way to earn more martial points and break through to become a real martial artist as soon as possible. The only question was whether he could earn martial points from normal sparring, aside from life and death battles like last time. To test that idea, Su Hong went to the martial arts gym where he usually worked part-time. There were already plenty of students inside, locked in intense sparring matches. But just as Song Fei, who was on good terms with Su Hong, came over to greet him, someone nearby was kicked straight to the ground. Then a stranger started cursing the fallen student, calling him trash and saying he had no talent, yet still dared to blame his teacher. Song Fei told Su Hong that the man's teacher was a newly arrived instructor, but he looked down on the students here, so his classes were always half-hearted, and this guy named Li Yan was extremely strong. Seeing Li Yan prepare to attack the student again, Su Hong stepped forward without hesitation and grabbed his wrist. Seeing someone interfere and even tell him to stop at an appropriate point, Li Yan instantly flared with anger and told Su Hong to let go, or he would stop being polite. At that moment, a middle-aged man spoke up and stopped the scene, reminding everyone that class was about to begin. Li Yan could only glare fiercely at Su Hong before turning away. The man who had spoken was Li Yan's teacher, Jiang Ming. This time, he had come to teach everyone the Raging Sea Spear art. After telling them that today would be his final class, Jiang Ming quickly demonstrated the technique once in front of everyone. At the same time, he sneered inwardly, refusing to believe that this bunch of trash could actually learn it. Before leaving, he threw out one last line, saying that how much they could learn was entirely up to them. Once Jiang Ming left, everyone started complaining that he was way too unfair. Moving fast was bad enough, but he had only demonstrated it once. Only Su Hong, relying on his talent, had already grasped the key points. The core of this spear art was that the spear should move like a flood dragon rising from the sea, with momentum surging endlessly like crashing waves. Then, right in front of everyone, Su Hong began demonstrating the Raging Sea Spear art. For a moment, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Some even started wondering if they were just too stupid to learn it. The commotion outside also alerted Li Yan inside. When he saw Su Hong swinging the spear, surprise flashed across his eyes. He clearly hadn't expected Su Hong to actually learn the technique. So, Li Yan decided to test how deep Su Hong's skill really went and offered to give him some pointers on spear technique. Seeing this, Song Fei quickly urged Su Hong not to act recklessly, saying that even though Li Yan had a terrible personality, his strength was definitely real. But how could Su Hong possibly pass up a sparring partner delivered right to his door? After telling Song Fei not to worry, he set his stance and prepared to fight. Li Yan did have some real skill. He had actually trained the Raging Sea Spear art to subtle mastery. But the moment he saw Su Hong's opening stance, his expression changed drastically. He could tell that this looked like proficient-level Raging Sea Spear art, and in the instant Li Yan froze, Su Hong had already thrust his spear straight toward him. With just one strike, he sent the spear in Li Yan's hands flying. At the same time, the system actually notified Su Hong that his martial points had increased by 35. This proved his earlier guess was right. As for Li Yan, he collapsed to the ground, unable to believe that Su Hong, who wasn't even a martial artist yet, could train this technique to proficient level so quickly. It was practically a denial of all the effort he had put in over the years. Filled with humiliation and rage, Li Yan immediately swung his fist and charged at Su Hong. But a voice suddenly stopped him. His teacher, Jiang Ming, walked over with a dark expression. Jiang Ming not only slapped Li Yan in front of everyone, but also scolded him for not even having the courage to face defeat, saying he didn't deserve to call himself a martial artist. But when Jiang Ming thought about how even the geniuses for Magic Capital and Imperial Capital couldn't learn a technique to proficient level after watching it just once, he didn't waste another word. He pressed Li Yan's head down and made him apologize to Su Hong. Su Hong was left a little speechless, thinking this guy sure changed his tune fast. After leaving the martial arts gym, Su-hong began summarizing what he had gained today. Not only had he learned Thunderclap Fist and the Raging Sea Spear art, but he had also successfully earned martial points. But the school exam was only a few days away, so he needed to prepare a weapon for the test as soon as possible. After the fight just now, Su-hong realized that the spear seemed to suit him extremely well. Unfortunately, the little money he had wasn't even enough for his aunt's medical treatment, let alone buying a spear that could easily cost tens of thousands on the market. Thinking of this, Su-hong couldn't help sighing. Was there any other way to make money? Suddenly, the news report cut in on the TV inside a convenience store, saying that the number of ferocious beasts outside New City had been rising day by day, and martial artists could receive generous rewards from the city lord after hunting them down. Su-hong's heart lit up. Talk about perfect timing. Not long after, back at home, his aunt was applying medicated patches to his uncle while complaining about why he had to work himself so hard. But his uncle answered that little Hong was still young, so while he could still work, he wanted to save up more for the kid. Of course, Su-hong heard all of this from outside the door, so he stepped forward and took the medicated patch from his aunt's hand. Then he told his uncle that he could make money now, and that his uncle should stay home and take care of his aunt. But his uncle simply gave him a thumbs up and said he was only earning a little pocket money for daily expenses. His aunt also added, "Little Hong, practicing martial arts still costs a lot of money. We just want to help you save as much as we can." Hearing that, warmth surged through Su-hong's heart. He also understood that unless he earned enough money for them to live comfortably for the rest of their lives, his uncle and aunt would never truly retire and focus on their health. So, there was no way Su-hong could miss this beast hunting bounty. That night, after they fell asleep, Su-hong went up to the rooftop and added all 5 martial points into his vitality. With that, his vitality shot straight up to 95.2, leaving him only one step away from becoming a true martial artist. To be safe, Su-hong spent another 2 days training all of his martial techniques to perfection. Now, it was time to leave the city. The next day, inside the Starlight Martial Artist base. Since it was Su-hong's first time here, everything around him felt new and fascinating. Martial artists, who were usually hard to see, were practically everywhere in this place. He also learned the value of different ferocious beasts from the hunting guide. However, there was one condition. He had to cut off the beast's left ear as proof, or the reward would not be paid. Just then, a burst of noise caught Su-hong's attention. As for the person standing in the middle of the crowd, his outfit and aura looked a little like White Tiger from the underground martial arena. But Su-hong didn't think too much about it. Whether he was facing ferocious beasts or humans, he would stay cautious either way. Although the security guards at the city gate allowed Su-hong to pass, they secretly felt that he was overestimating himself. Someone this young running into the wild was basically a death wish. After sprinting for 2 full hours, Su-hong finally encountered his first ferocious beast in the wild, an early Tier 1 Moonshadow Wolf mentioned in the textbooks. Facing the Moonshadow Wolf as it swung its claws and lunged straight at him, Su-hong didn't panic at all. He dodged with a quick flash of movement, then charged up Thunderclap Fist and smashed it hard into the beast. The terrifying force blasted the Moonshadow Wolf away in an instant. Looking at the wolf that was now stone dead, Su-hong's palms trembled with excitement. So this was what it felt like to fight monsters. It was even more thrilling than he had imagined. Now he wondered whether he could still kill a mid-tier 1 beast in a single strike. But the moment that thought appeared in his mind, a mid-tier 1 berserk black bear had already pounced toward him. In the end, it was still killed by Su-hong with 1 punch. This gave him plenty of confidence. As long as he didn't provoke any tier 2 beasts, he shouldn't run into too much danger. Just as Su-hong cut off the black bear's ear as proof, the system suddenly sent a notification saying that the martial points he had accumulated were already enough for him to break through and become a martial artist. But before Su-hong could begin the breakthrough, a roar that made his soul tremble suddenly rang out. Out of curiosity, Su-hong wanted to see what kind of ferocious beast could possess such terrifying pressure. With a few quick leaps, he rushed toward the source of the sound. But with just one glance, Su-hong froze on the spot, because what appeared before him was a late Tier 1 black jade python, and several martial artists were already fighting it nearby. But very quickly, those martial artists were struck hard by the black jade python. Their bodies shot backward like cannonballs and slammed heavily into the rocks below. In the next second, Su-hong immediately sensed danger closing in. Although he jumped away just before the python's tail smashed down, he still failed to completely avoid its second attack. The blow shook Su-hong so hard that he coughed up a mouthful of blood. If he hadn't raised both arms to guard his chest in time, this would have been far worse than a minor injury. Su Hong quickly picked up the spear left behind by a dead martial artist nearby. Looking at the massive beast in front of him, he knew very well that killing a late tier 1 ferocious beast normally required several martial artists of the same level working together. But all of Su Hong's martial techniques had already reached perfection, which meant he absolutely had what it takes to fight this giant python. With that thought, Su Hong silently activated the Raging Sea Spear art. As he suddenly exerted force, the spear in his hand shot out like a raging wave, tearing through the air. The black jade python instantly let out a painful scream. The spear pierced through its body like a sharp blade, but the black jade python was still a late tier 1 beast. Although the strike landed, it was not enough to deal fatal damage. In that case, Su Hong had to weaken it as much as possible first, then look for a chance to deliver the killing blow. But just as that thought crossed his mind, the python's tail was already whipping toward him with terrifying force. Su Hong did not retreat. He directly unleashed Thunderclap Fist and punched straight into it. After forcefully knocking the tail back, he immediately retreated and opened up the distance. At the same time, Su Hong came up with a plan. Every time he landed a hit, he would pull back at once, then wait for the next opening. Fighting like this would drain a lot of stamina, but at least it was much safer. Judging from the black jade python's current state, it seemed close to its limit. The martial artists from earlier must have worn it down quite a bit. However, just as Su Hong was about to attack again, a sharp gust suddenly came from behind him. It was a martial artist throwing a punch straight at him. Although Su Hong defended himself at the first possible moment, he was still blasted away by that overwhelming force. When Su Hong got back to his feet, several figures were already walking slowly toward him. The man in the lead spoke with arrogance, telling Su Hong to hand the black jade python over to them. He even recognized Su Hong as the young martial artist who had left the city alone earlier. He originally thought Su Hong would have died out in the wild, but unexpectedly not only was Su Hong still alive, he had also stumbled upon a heavily injured black jade python. Su Hong immediately understood the key point. Since the man said he had stumbled upon it, that meant they had only just arrived and had no idea what had happened earlier. But before Su Hong could respond, the burly man who had attacked him charged over again and barked at him to get lost, saying that this python now belonged to their young master Yi. Hearing that, Su Hong's expression instantly darkened. The only reason he had been knocked back earlier was because the man had ambushed him. Did they really think he was some pushover they could crush whenever they wanted? As soon as he finished speaking, Su Hong threw a punch right back at him. The burly man never dreamed that his own fist would be blasted aside by an overwhelming force. Caught completely off guard, he took Su Hong's punch head-on. Seeing the burly man collapse and fail to get back up, the man known as Young Master Yi still wore a smile on his face. He even praised Su Hong's Vajra fist and confirmed on the spot that Su Hong was the bullhead from that night. Su Hong was a little surprised. No wonder this guy had seemed familiar earlier. Young Master Ye was actually White Fox, and the moment White Fox thought about how Su Hong had humiliated him in front of so many people, the smile on his face turned cold, and he directly ordered them to kill Su Hong. Su Hong knew he couldn't clash with them head-on right now, so, without looking back, he charged straight into the depths of the forest. Very quickly, everyone White Fox brought chased after him. The man at the front had just opened his mouth to warn the others to watch out for an ambush, but Su Hong appeared behind him with a sharp whoosh. Before the others could react, that man was smashed to the ground by Thunderclap Fist. Hearing the 9 thunderous booms echo through the forest, then looking at their fallen teammate, the group could no longer stay calm. Their eyes were filled with fear toward the 9-boom Thunderclap Fist. Even White Fox was no exception, because he knew very well that even a third-rank martial artist might not be able to train Thunderclap Fist to perfection. Yet Su Hong had already used 2 perfect-level martial techniques in a row. Su Hong stood on a treetop, coldly watching everything below. If he hadn't used up so much stamina fighting the giant python earlier, he could have crushed them head-on. But for now, he could only look for openings and take them down one by one. While their attention was drawn to the spear, Su Hong quickly locked onto his next target. Then he suddenly burst forward, dropping from above and driving his knees straight into the man's head. By the time the other 2 reacted, they only saw the man stiffen before falling backward. Immediately after that, another sharp rush of wind rang out. The last martial artist guarding White Fox was also taken out cleanly by Su Hong. Even now, White Fox still couldn't understand how Su Hong's strength had changed so drastically in just a few days. but he still managed to sense Su Hong appearing behind him. White Fox immediately raised his hand and condensed a dazzling blue light in his palm. Realizing that this martial technique was far from ordinary, Su Hong quickly ducked to dodge. In the next second, the beam struck the tree trunk behind him. It actually snapped the massive tree in half on the spot. If Su Hong's guess was right, that kind of power had probably reached the level of a B-rank martial technique. At the same time, White Fox suddenly spoke, coldly saying that he had memorized Su Hong's face. If Su Hong dared to hurt him, then once he got back, he would wipe out Su Hong's entire family. Those words instantly crossed the alternate line for Su Hong. If White Fox still had even the slightest chance to live before, now he was dead for sure. But White Fox had no idea he was already dancing on his own grave. He even brought up his uncle, who worked as a supervisor at the martial artist base, trying to pressure Su Hong with his backing. What he didn't expect was that Su Hong had already appeared behind him, his voice icy cold. "Kill my whole family? You'll need to leave this place alive first." Then, Su Hong slammed a punch into White Fox's body. White Fox was blasted out of the forest like a cannonball. When Su Hong walked up to him, he said coldly, "You could have threatened anything else, but you should never ever have threatened my family." At that moment, White Fox simply couldn't understand it. The person in front of him was clearly only a martial apprentice, so why could he beat a real martial artist like him into such a miserable state? But just as he desperately wanted to know the answer, a dark shadow rapidly expanded behind him. White Fox didn't even have time to scream. He was smashed into a bloody pulp by the black jade python on the spot. Su Hong immediately went on full alert. He also understood that because he had spent too long fighting this group, the black jade python had recovered quite a bit of its strength. Meanwhile, inside the forest, the martial artists Su Hong had knocked down earlier began waking up one after another. But when they saw Su Hong sprinting toward them, their first instinct was to join forces and teach him a lesson. What they didn't expect was that the black jade python was chasing right behind him, perhaps thinking these people were in the way. The black jade python opened its jaws and bit straight at them. Seeing the system notification appear, Su Hong gained a clearer understanding of how martial points can be obtained. And after so many battles, the martial points he had accumulated were already enough for him to break through to become a martial artist. So while dodging the black jade python's attacks, Su Hong began searching the forest for a suitable place to break through. A few minutes later, he actually found a cave. But just as he rushed inside, the black jade python slammed its way in right after him. Su Hong knew he had to add his martial points to vitality as quickly as possible. Otherwise, once the python fully charged in, everything would be too late. As his vitality kept rising, Su Hong's entire body became burning hot, as if what flowed through his veins was no longer blood, but scorching lava. Finally, at a certain moment, his vitality reached 100, and Su Hong officially left behind his identity as a martial apprentice, becoming a true martial artist. Now, it was time to counterattack. Soon, a thunderous explosion erupted inside the cave. Su Hong blasted the black jade python's body away with a single strike. Then he unleashed Vajra Fist again and charged straight at it. But the black jade python seized the moment and quickly whipped its tail towards Su Hong. This time, however, Su Hong could block its attack with ease. In the next second, he returned the favor with a full set of Raging Sea Spear art. He forcibly pinned a giant python's massive body to the ground. With nowhere left to escape, the black jade python could only take Su Hong's full-powered Thunderclap Fist head-on, and killing it successfully increased Su Hong's martial points by 92. But very soon, Su Hong ran into a problem. To claim money for hunting ferocious beasts, he had to cut off the left ear as proof. But this black jade python didn't even have ears. What was he supposed to do? Left with no other choice, Su Hong could only give up the reward that was practically in his hands, and instead walked over to White Fox's corpse. After all, the martial technique White Fox had used earlier was extremely powerful. A high-level technique like that was probably something he carried with him. After searching around for a while, Su Hong really did find a manual on him called Void Breaking Finger. For the next few hours, Su Hong stayed inside the cave and memorized the beginner method of Void Breaking Finger. Then, he closed his eyes and activated the system's function. After entering the consciousness space, Su Hong's avatar appeared before him, just as expected. However, the battle had barely begun when the avatar left a cut across Su Hong's cheek. That instantly ignited Su Hong's competitive spirit, and he began clashing head-on with the avatar, using finger techniques. As time passed second by second, Su Hong's void-breaking finger finally reached the beginner stage. As for what came next, he needed to find some unlucky target to test its power. Just like that, 3 days passed. Su-hong continued fighting ferocious beasts throughout the forest. His void-breaking finger also advanced all the way from beginner level to perfection. That afternoon, Su-hong returned to the martial artist base. When people heard that Thunder Squad had earned as much as 300,000 this time, the surrounding martial artists sighed in amazement. Team hunting really was powerful. In just a few days, they had earned what most people made in several months. Suddenly, a wave of shocked cries came from another settlement counter. When the crowd gathered closer, they realized that all the beast proofs Su-hong submitted came from mid to high tier ferocious beasts. There were hundreds of them in total, and the final payout reached more than 400,000. But Su-hong wasn't happy at all. Not only had the Black Jade Python not been counted, but more importantly, he had killed too many beasts and drawn far too much attention. However, at that moment, an explosion suddenly erupted from the martial artist base building. In an instant, every martial artist in the area turned to look. A middle-aged man stormed out in a rage and ordered the entire base to be sealed off. Not even a fly was allowed to leave. At first, everyone was confused by such an extreme order. Then they heard the man explain that his nephew, Yi Feng, and the 4 martial artists who had followed him were all dead. But instead of caring, the people present actually felt that Ye Feng, that disaster of a person, deserved to die. If not for the fact that his uncle, Ye Qi, was the supervisor here, some of them would have wanted to kill him with their own hands. Ye Qi then declared that a B-rank martial technique on Ye Feng had gone missing. Everyone here had to be searched and cleared of suspicion before they could leave. Hearing this, Su-hong secretly felt relieved. After all, they had all died in the Black Jade Python's mouth, so it shouldn't be traced back to him. But just as Su-hong was thinking that, Ye Qi suddenly turned his gaze toward him. Seeing Ye Qi walk towards Su-hong, the surrounding martial artists immediately stepped aside on their own. After arriving in front of Su-hong, Ye Qi slowly said, "Young man, I heard you killed over 400,000 worth of ferocious beasts all by yourself. Impressive skills." In the female employee's eyes, an early first-rank martial artist couldn't possibly do something like that. So she suspected that Su-hong must have picked up Ye Feng's backpack. 2 security guards immediately moved forward and coldly told Su-hong to cooperate with the body search. But before they could make a move, they suddenly saw a bright spear tip appear in front of them, moving so fast they couldn't even see it clearly. Su-hong said coldly that he was a student of New City First High, and if they wanted to search him, they had better think carefully first. Yi Qi knew very well that the principal of New City First High was fiercely protective of his students. If this turned out to be a mistake, the cost would not be worth it. So Ye Qi raised his hand and signaled for the security guards to step back. Then he told Su-hong that after his nephew was attacked, their family martial technique had been stolen. As his uncle, he had no choice but to handle things this way. As long as Su-hong agreed to the body search, Ye Qi was willing to give him $10,000 as compensation. But Su-hong simply raised 3 fingers and pushed the price up to 30,000. The reason Su-hong dared to make that demand was simple. Ye Feng had ultimately been killed by the python, and the void-breaking finger manual had already been cleaned up. No matter how carefully they searched, as long as they couldn't find the martial technique, they had no way to trace it back to Su-hong. Just like that, Su-hong not only received $30,000 for free, he also successfully cleared himself of suspicion as the killer. After leaving the base, Su-hong found a hotel to rest and opened his attribute panel. Over the past few days, he had been focused on training void-breaking finger and hunting ferocious beasts, so he hadn't used his martial points at all. By now, he had accumulated 534 points. From what he remembered, an early first-rank martial artist needed 100 vitality, while a mid-first-rank martial artist needed 200 vitality. Even if he used all his martial points to raise vitality, it would only increase by 53.4 points, still leaving him more than 40 vitality short of the mid-stage. But he had never upgraded his spirit or mortal body attributes before, so he had no idea what their effects would be. Thinking of this, Su-hong first added some martial points to his spirit attribute, but he didn't notice any obvious change. However, when he added martial points to his mortal body, Su-hong immediately felt a huge increase in strength. Even his appearance changed into that of a muscular beast of a man. Fortunately, after a short while, his body gradually returned to normal. Otherwise, if he had stayed in that muscular form, Su-hong wouldn't even know how to explain it to people who knew him. As for the remaining 200 martial points, he decided to put them all into vitality. After resting for a while, Su-hong went to the New City Martial Artist Association. Only by passing the assessment there could he officially become a registered martial artist. After he told the staff member why he had come, she could tell that this was Su-hong's first time taking the assessment. So she kindly reminded him that to qualify as a first-rank martial artist, his vitality had to reach 100, and his combat power score had to exceed 1000. The two martial artists behind him also began talking about Su Hong. When they noticed he had come alone, without even a master accompanying him, they assumed someone this young was probably just here playing tourist. But right then, a wave of commotion suddenly came from the assessment hall ahead. It turned out that a young man named Li Ming had passed the vitality test. Under everyone's attention, Li Ming then stepped up beside the combat power testing machine. As he unleashed 5-boom thunderclap fist and slammed it heavily into the machine, the panel showed that his combat power had actually reached 1763. The people around him immediately treated him like a genius. Some even recognized his identity, saying he was Jiang Ming's disciple from the Raging Thunder martial arts gym. Su Hong couldn't help feeling confused. Was it Jiang Ming's disciple called Li Yan? Where did this Li Ming pop out from? But unexpectedly, Li Ming walked over to Su Hong with a wicked grin and gestured for him to go next. Li Ming couldn't help sneering inwardly. In his eyes, someone his age taking the assessment meant he was a genius, while someone like Su Hong showing up at this age was just making a complete fool of himself. But in the very next second, shocked cries suddenly rang in his ears when he saw the machine display Su Hong's vitality value at 123. Li Ming's jaw nearly dropped. He couldn't believe Su Hong's vitality was actually higher than his. Still, he quickly comforted himself. High vitality alone meant nothing. Combat power was the real standard for judging a genius. Under the examiner's reminder, Su Hong also stepped up beside the combat power testing machine. He thought to himself that since he had already advanced into a martial artist and upgraded his physique, using 40% of his strength should be enough. But to be safe, Su Hong eventually decided to use 50%. However, the moment his fist touched the machine, the entire machine was blasted away like a cannonball. Even the wall, not far behind it, was destroyed along with it. At that moment, everyone was completely stunned. It was their first time seeing someone punch a testing machine away, and it seems like Su Hong hadn't even used any martial technique. After all, even a late first-rank martial artist had only around 3000 combat power, yet Su Hong's result had directly surpassed 3000. The two figures on the high platform were just as shocked. The boss of the underground martial arena muttered, "So it was him. No wonder he had that kind of strength." Meanwhile, inside the office of the Starlight Martial Arts Association, the association president Wu Linshen was glaring at her phone in frustration. She was furious that the neighboring Yangcheng branch had produced yet another genius, while Starlight City had nothing. If this kept going, her days in this position were numbered. But just as Wu Linshen was thinking that, someone suddenly shoved open the office door. The person urgently reported that a monster had appeared during the martial artist assessment. He was only at the early first-rank stage, yet with raw physical strength alone, he had punched the testing machine away, and his combat power had reached a terrifying 3000 plus. At that moment, in the central hall, Su Hong was being led to the second floor to register his martial artist identity. But a figure suddenly appeared at the elevator entrance. The person who arrived was none other than President Wu Lingshan. After revealing her identity, she told Su Hong to follow her. Su Hong instinctively nodded, thinking that this woman was the president of the Starlight Martial Artist Association. She was said to be a 5th-rank martial artist, but she seemed a little different from what he had imagined. Just like that, Su Hong was brought by Wu Linxian to the president's office. Wu Linxian knew Su Hong was a student from New City First High. She just hadn't expected a genius like him to appear this year. Faced with her praise, Su Hong seemed a bit stiff, but he still mustered the courage to ask why she had called him over. After all, he had come here to register as a martial artist, as well as receive his stipend and guidance technique. Wu Lingshen waved her hand and told Su Hong not to be nervous. She had brought him here because she wanted to personally guide him in cultivating a guidance technique, and she asked him to explain how much he already knew about guidance techniques. Su Hong answered that according to the textbook, a guidance technique was a method used to absorb spiritual energy from heaven and earth to strengthen oneself, and absorbing different elemental energies required corresponding guidance techniques. Wu Mingshan spread open her palm and condensed a ball of flame, explaining that a guidance technique was not just a cultivation method. For example, the heavenly flame guidance technique she cultivated, it mainly absorbed fire attribute spiritual energy. While strengthening her body, it also allowed her attacks to carry fire attribute destructive power. If someone could release attribute attacks externally, they could even increase their attack range. But for a first-rank martial artist, forget wrapping an attribute around their fist. Being able to carry even a trace of attribute power was already impressive. Seeing this, Su Hong was greatly surprised. he had never imagined that a guidance technique could actually be used for attacking. Wu Linshen then explained that spiritual energy from heaven and earth had 7 attributes in total: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, lightning, and wind. Among them, lightning, metal, and fire had the strongest offensive power. However, every attribute had its own strengths and weaknesses. Which one Su Hong could cultivate depended on his compatibility. And as she spoke, she picked up a crystal ball from the desk. Wu Lingshen told Su Hong that this crystal ball was used to test attribute compatibility. The larger the glowing area, the higher the compatibility. Ordinary martial artists usually had around 30%, while she had reached 80% back when she was tested. Based on Su Hong's performance in the assessment hall earlier, Wu Lingshan guessed that his compatibility would definitely exceed 90%. Holding the crystal ball in his hand, Su Hong fell into thought. Wu Linshan had reached 80% compatibility and became a 5th-rank martial artist at such a young age, making her an absolute genius. If he could reach 90%, that would be ridiculously exaggerated, but in the next second, the crystal ball suddenly erupted with dazzling red light. The blazing glow instantly filled the entire office. Wu Lingshan was shocked beyond belief because she could tell that Su Hong's fire attribute compatibility had actually reached 100%. She immediately told Su Hong with excitement that this level of compatibility meant he would not waste even a trace of fire attribute spiritual energy when absorbing it. With Wu Lingshan's own 80% compatibility, she still lost 20% when absorbing fire attribute spiritual energy. Yet even with that, she had still become a 5th-rank martial artist with an overwhelming advantage. That meant Su Hong's future achievements would only surpass hers, and he would be no weaker than the monsters from Magic Capital and Imperial Capital. Hearing this, Su Hong looked at the crystal ball and thought that while fire attribute was not bad, he actually preferred lightning. If only he had lightning attribute, that would be even better. But the moment that thought appeared in his mind, countless bolts of lightning suddenly began dancing wildly across the crystal ball. The sight made Wu Lingshan freeze on the spot. She simply could not believe that Su Hong's lightning and fire attributes were both at full compatibility. This was not just a genius anymore. This was a monster. But what happened next left Wu Lingshan completely stunned. Su Hong merely shifted his focus slightly, and the crystal ball actually showed that his wind attribute compatibility was also 100%. A few minutes later, Wu Lingshan was already slumped weakly on the sofa. She was so speechless that she felt like she had to be dreaming. How could anyone have 100% compatibility with all 7 attributes? She had always considered herself a top-tier genius. A 30-year-old 5th-rank martial artist was as rare as hen's teeth, no matter where one looked. But when Wu Lingshan faced someone this far beyond common sense, she finally understood that her so-called genius was still just ordinary. To defeat an existence beyond common sense, one needed someone equally beyond common sense, someone like this freak, sitting right in front of her. Su Hong, on the other hand, was thinking that since all 7 of his attributes were at 100%, focusing only on lightning and abandoning the rest felt like an absolute daylight robbery. So he asked Wu Lingshan whether she could give him a copy of the guidance technique for all 7 attributes. Wu Lingshan immediately told him that this method was not practical. In the past, someone had tried cultivating all 7 guidance techniques at the same time, but even after decades, that person had still remained a 1st-rank martial artist. It was best to choose only 1 or 2 attributes to cultivate. Su Hong could only explain that he still could not decide for now, so he wanted to try cultivating all of them first, see the effects, and then decide which one to focus on. Only then did Wu Lingshan reluctantly agree. Suddenly, Wu Lingshan changed the subject and asked whether New City First High was about to hold its monthly exam. The reason she brought this up was that friction on the Myriad Heavens battlefield had been getting worse lately, and a full-scale war between the myriad races and humanity could break out at any moment. Because of that, countries around the world had invested massive resources into forming genius training camps. As long as Su Hong could take first place in his school's monthly exam, she could give him a recommendation slot. Hearing this, Su Hong immediately stated that he would do everything he could to take first place. After all, if not for the Great War against the myriad races decades ago, he would not have lost every family member except his uncle and aunt. So Su Hong had to become stronger, and he would never allow that kind of tragedy to happen again. By the time Su Hong returned home, it was already night, and when he handed over his martial artist identification certificate, his uncle and aunt were so excited that they cried tears of joy. With the monthly $10,000 stipend for 1st-rank martial artists, the 2 elders finally agreed to stop working themselves so hard. Seeing everything develop in the direction he had hoped for, Su Hong finally felt relieved. He also made up his mind that from today onward, he would truly carry this family on his shoulders. Late that night, Su-hong was cultivating guidance techniques on the rooftop. Although he had already trained the fire attribute guidance technique to the beginner stage, he never expected the punch he threw to have almost no power at all. But when he opened the system panel, a new section for guidance techniques had indeed appeared. Just as Su-hong was feeling confused, his eyes suddenly locked onto the label that said, Level 1. Could it be that guidance techniques also had levels? But Wu Linshen had never mentioned that to him. Was it really what he was thinking? Su-hong was just about to use martial points to raise the level of the guidance technique, but the system suddenly popped up a notification saying he did not have enough martial points. With no other choice, Su-hong calmed himself down and decided to learn all the remaining guidance techniques first. After several hours of relentless effort, all 7 guidance techniques finally reached the beginner stage. But very quickly, Su-hong noticed something strange. Although 7 different types of spiritual energy from heaven and earth existed inside his body at the same time, they were constantly rejecting each other. No wonder Wu Linshen had said that the genius who tried cultivating all 7 guidance techniques had still remained a first-rank martial artist after decades, because each time he attacked, he could only use 1 attribute. If he forcibly used 2 attributes at the same time, they would react violently and eventually cancel each other out. But lightning and fire were relatively similar in nature. Maybe he could fuse them together. With that thought, Su-hong immediately began experimenting. Even after failing again and again, he still refused to give up. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Su-hong opened his palm once more, fatally realizing that he was only 1 step away from grasping the trick. As fire attribute was added into the lightning, he continuously adjusted the ratio between the two. Finally, at a certain moment, the 2 different attributes fused together in perfect balance. Seeing this, Su-hong let out a long breath. He had finally succeeded. Now he just needed to see whether this lightning fire power he had spent the whole night creating would bring him a real surprise. To test its power, Su-hong went to New City's public martial arena. After all, the Tier 3 combat power testing machine here probably wouldn't be destroyed by 1 punch like last time. Even so, Su-hong still held back. For this punch, aside from adding lightning power, he only used 30% of his strength. But after the punch landed, the machine actually displayed 2343 combat power. Compared to his previous 30% punch, it had increased by a full 500 points. If pure lightning power alone was already this strong, then the fused lightning firepower would definitely be even more terrifying. Su-hong decisively wrapped lightning firepower around the surface of his fist. When his fist struck the machine, a deep, muffled boom instantly filled the surroundings. The panel showed that this strike had reached an exaggerated 3041 combat power. And this was only the fusion of 2 attributes. With just 30% of his strength, he had already surpassed a late first-rank martial artist. If he could fuse all 7 attributes, that kind of power might genuinely rival Lucky Bros Buddha's Rathless. The idea sounded beautiful, but reality quickly hit him like a ton of bricks. After returning home, he tried all kinds of combinations, yet he still couldn't fuse a 3rd attribute into the mix. The difficulty was countless times higher than fusing just 2. It seemed he could only wait until tomorrow's school exam to earn more martial points, then raise the level of his guidance techniques before trying again. Soon, the next day arrived, and all the students were gathered on the field. The principal told everyone that this school exam would be different from previous ones. Because the situation on the front lines was getting tense, every school would be selecting talents to join the training camp. The camp not only had large amounts of martial arts and pill resources, but also Grandmaster level martial artists serving as mentors. The top 3 students in the school exam would qualify for New City's training camp. Hearing this, all the students became extremely excited. After all, having a 7th-rank Grandmaster as a mentor was something they had never even dared to dream about before. But Su-hong's mouth twitched. Only now did he realize Wu Linshen had played him. The top 3, clearly all Ed slots, yet she had insisted that he take 1st place. At this moment, his best friend Chen Lin came over and said that Chen Shan and Li Tu had both become 1st-rank martial artists, and quite a few students had trained Thunderclap Fist to the proficient level. On top of that, Su-hong hadn't come to school for several days. Judging from the current situation, 1st and 2nd place would definitely go to Chen Shan and Li Tu. As for Chen Lin and Su-hong, they basically had no chance. Meanwhile, on the stage, Chen Tian was asking the principal whether he had found the genius who could unleash 9-boom Thunderclap Fist. The principal had just replied that he had searched everywhere during this period, and that the person might not be a student of 1st High, when he suddenly noticed 3 figures slowly walking over in the distance. The person leading them was none other than Jian Ming, his former comrade. The principal immediately gave him a cold look and questioned why he had come here. Jiang Ming smiled and said that this year's students didn't seem all that impressive. Since he had brought 2 disciples with him, how about letting the first-place students spar with them after the exam? Of course, if the principal refused, he would completely understand. The principal's face turned extremely ugly. He knew Jiang Ming had come here on purpose to embarrass him. But if he refused, it would be the same as admitting that the entire school had no decent talent. But right then, Li Yan suddenly leaned toward Jiang Ming and whispered, "Teacher, this is bad. Isn't that kid over there Su-hong?" Jiang Ming looked in the direction he pointed. Sure enough, he saw a familiar face. Jiang Ming was instantly stunned. He had never expected Su-hong to be a student of First High. In that moment, the 3 of them immediately understood the situation. If they really fought, the one's losing face would definitely be their side. So Jiang Ming awkwardly said that he had only been joking earlier. His 2 useless disciples could never compare to the students here. But the moment he said that, the principal and Chen Tian became even more furious. To them, Jiang Ming was absolutely shameless, still daring to mock them in such a sarcastic way. 2 hours after the school exam began, the broadcast finally announced that it was Su-hong's turn to fight contestant number 665, Chen Peng. Seeing this, Chen Lin felt that Su-hong was seriously unlucky. His very first opponent was a quasi-martial artist. Even the homeroom teacher reminded Su-hong that he could try exchanging a few moves first, and if it really didn't work, he should just admit defeat. Chen Peng, standing in front of Su-hong, also advised him to step down on his own, or he wouldn't mind personally throwing him off the stage. But the moment Chen Peng finished speaking, Su-hong vanished from where he stood. When he appeared again, one hand was already pressing down on Chen Peng's head. In the next second, Su-hong casually swung his arm and smashed Chen Peng hard into the ground. The homeroom teacher and Chen Lin were both stunned on the spot. He had instantly defeated a quasi-martial artist in one move. Was this still the Su-hong they knew? When had he become this terrifyingly strong? Even the principal and Chen Tian were deeply surprised. They knew almost every student in the school with even a little talent, yet they had no impression of Su-hong at all. But, compared to Su-hong, everyone was more focused on the semi-final between the other 2 geniuses on the arena stage, mainly because Chen Shan and Li Tu were extremely close in strength. They had already exchanged several rounds, yet neither side could gain the upper hand. Then Li Tu spoke up, saying that both of them had 3-boom thunderclap fist. If Chen Shan still refused to use his trump card, he could forget about beating him. Chen Shan also knew that Li Tu was right, so he directly wrapped flames around his fist and told Li Tu to look carefully, because he was the real #1 student in the school. The crowd immediately widened their eyes, because they all recognized it. This was external attribute release, and it was fire attribute, second only to lightning in offensive power. But Li Tu did not panic at all. He sneered and told Chen Shan that it was just external attribute release, and he could do it too. In an instant, everyone was stunned. No one had expected Li Tu to have mastered external attribute release as well, and his was metal attribute, even stronger than fire in combat power. At the same time, Li Tu attacked again, and declared that this was not all he could do. Hearing 5 sonic booms tear through the air, Chen Shan's face filled with disbelief. In the next second, Chen Shan was blasted away by Li Tu's 5-boom thunderclap fist. Seeing this, the principal and Chen Tian both felt that Li Tu had hidden himself far too deeply. In just over 10 days, he had not only mastered external attribute release, but had also trained thunderclap fist to subtle mastery. His talent truly deserved the title of the school's #1 genius. Just as the 2 of them felt there was no longer any need to watch the remaining matches since Su-hong definitely could not beat Li Tu, Jiang Ming suddenly leaned over and suggested making a bet. When the principal heard that Jiang Ming was willing to bet $50,000 on Su-hong winning, his first reaction was that this guy had lost his mind. In his opinion, Su-hong did have some talent, but he did not know any guidance techniques, so he was absolutely no match for Li Tu. But Chen Tian immediately agreed. If someone was rushing to hand them money, why refuse? A few minutes later, Su-hong and Li Tu stood on the final arena stage. Li Tu praised Su-hong for being lucky, saying that if Su-hong had run into him or Chen Shan earlier, he never would have made it to the finals. Su-hong ignored him completely. In his mind, all the previous students had felt like weaklings. Finally, someone who could actually fight had shown up. But before the match began, Li Tu called out to Su-hong again, saying that since he had reached the finals, he could call himself the school's second best from now on. When Su-hong asked who the first was, Li Tu instantly charged forward with a punch and said that the first was, of course, him. To show Su-hong exactly how wide the gap between them was, Li Tu opened with 5-boom thunderclap fist. This made the students in the stands drop their jaws. They all believed that once thunderclap fist came out, Su Hong was definitely done for. But when they saw that Su Hong did not dodge, and instead threw a punch straight back at him, the crowd completely lost their composure, shouting for the referee to save him. But to everyone's disbelief, Su Hong not only withstood Li Tu's thunderclap fist, he even fought him evenly. Even Li Tu was deeply shocked. He had thought that thunderclap fist alone would be enough to defeat Su Hong. Yet no matter how he punched, Su Hong easily dissolved every attack. And every time Su Hong blocked one of his punches, a burning sting would spread across Li Tu's fist. In the stands, the homeroom teacher and Shenlin were already stunned speechless. They had never imagined that Su Hong could fight evenly against Li Tu's thunderclap fist without using any martial technique at all. The principal and Chen Tian were just as shocked. They guessed that Su Hong must possess some kind of special physique, or else he would never have such exaggerated strength. However, Chen Tian still let out a sigh. In his view, Su Hong's strength was astonishing, but Li Tu had already condensed attribute power. Pure strength alone still would not give Su Hong a real advantage. Back on the arena stage, Li Tu finally realized that in terms of raw strength alone, he was no match for Su Hong. So in anger and frustration, he mobilized the metal attribute energy inside his body. Then he charged straight at Su Hong and roared that Su Hong should stop acting so arrogant, because first place in this school exam could only belong to him. Hearing that, Su Hong felt a little helpless. He had originally wanted to see how far he could push Li Tu with raw physical strength alone, but this guy had gone all out much faster than expected. Still, since Li Tu was giving it everything he had, Su Hong had to show him the proper respect. As lightning power gradually wrapped around Su Hong's hand, Li Tu instantly broke out in a cold sweat. Even the principal and Chen Tian in the stands were completely stunned. They never expected that aside from his terrifying physical strength, Su Hong had also mastered lightning power, one of the strongest offensive attributes. This kind of talent was truly one in a million. When Su Hong and Li Tu's fists collided, a violent wave of force instantly swept across the entire arena. At that moment, Li Tu could no longer stay calm, because he clearly felt that Su Hong's lightning attribute was stronger than his metal attribute. Su Hong looked at him and said, "Since you showed me your trump card, I'll show you mine." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Hong directly unleashed Thunderclap Fist. In the next second, 9 deafening sonic booms erupted across the arena, and Li Tu was instantly blasted away by that terrifying impact. Before losing consciousness, only one thought remained in his mind: 9-boom Thunderclap Fist, how was that possible? Then Li Tu crashed onto the arena stage with a heavy boom. The entire spectator area fell into dead silence. A few seconds later, everyone erupted into thunderous cheers. The homeroom teacher and Chen Lin were the most excited, because they had just witnessed the birth of a true monster, watching Su Hong walk down from the arena. The principal and Chen Tian were so shocked that they could barely speak properly. Only now did they finally realize that Su Hong was the 9-boom Thunderclap Fist genius who had disappeared from the school that day. And once a monster like him entered the training camp, he would absolutely crush the confidence of those talented students with powerful backgrounds. The principal immediately sighed and said that a golden carp would never remain trapped in a pond, and once it met the wind and clouds, it would transform into a dragon. It seemed that New City First High was truly about to produce a dragon. When Su Hong returned home, he immediately shared the news with his uncle and aunt. His uncle had already heard that as long as Su Hong took first place in the monthly exam, he would receive a slot for the genius training camp, so he was genuinely happy for him. But just then, a knock at the door interrupted the joy. When the door was opened, standing outside was an elegant and wealthy-looking lady. It turned out that she was the parent of Lin Mian, a student from the same school. Her son had ranked 4th in this monthly exam, so she wanted to offer Su Hong $30,000 to give up his slot and let Lin Yan enter the training camp instead. Seeing Su Hong, his uncle, and his aunt all look at her like she was an idiot, the lady immediately became furious. She didn't believe that someone from Su Hong's family background could survive in a place filled with geniuses who could pop high-grade pills like candy and practice high-rank martial techniques freely. But his uncle immediately stepped forward and snapped back, telling her not to act all high and mighty just because she had some dirty money. If her family was so rich, then why didn't Lin Nian take first place? After saying that, his uncle slammed the door shut with a heavy bang. After being shut out, the wealthy lady gritted her teeth in anger, thinking that peasants would always be peasants, and that they could just wait to be eliminated from the training camp. Afterward, Su Hong wanted to tell his uncle not to worry about him, but his uncle simply gave him a thumbs up and said that although he was just a rough man, he believed from the bottom of his heart that Su-hong had the resolve to face hardship. No matter what happened, he and Su-hong's aunt would support him unconditionally. Seeing this, warmth filled Su-hong's heart, and he silently made up his mind that he would never let his uncle and aunt down. That night, Su-hong went up to the rooftop again. To protect this hard-earned life, he knew he had to become stronger as soon as possible. In this monthly exam, including both the written test and combat matches, he had fought more than 10 times and earned a total of 285 martial points. Those martial points could be used to strengthen his physical combat power. The moment the martial points flowed into his mortal body, Su-hong's physique underwent an unprecedented boost. But even after spending all of his martial points, his mortal body only rose to 64.6%, making Su-hong wonder what kind of special physique it would evolve into after that. At that moment, he suddenly noticed that the levels of his lightning guidance technique and heavenly flame guidance technique had somehow increased. Over the past few days, Su-hong had not done anything else. Could it be that guidance techniques did not need any extra conditions, and normal cultivation alone could raise their levels? To verify his guess, Su-hong decided to start trying right away, and see whether he could raise them by another level. This continued until dawn the next day. Su-hong finally sensed that both guidance techniques had indeed reached level 3. Even his vitality had increased by 3 points, which was a pleasant surprise. Half an hour later, Su-hong packed his things simply, said goodbye to his uncle and aunt, and headed alone to the gathering point. But before he had gone far, a red sports car suddenly screeched to a stop in front of him. The person inside was actually Wu Lingxin, the president of the Martial Artist Association. Just like that, Su-hong sat in her passenger seat. While the car was moving, Su-hong asked the question in his heart. "President, did you need something from me?" Wu Lingxian looked extremely serious as she told him that there were some things about the training camp she had to warn him about in advance. According to what she knew, among the martial artists joining the training camp, there were several true monsters whose strength had already reached late first rank, only one step away from becoming second-rank martial artists, and the martial techniques they mastered were at least B rank. Su-hong was the most talented person she had ever seen, but he still lacked the same abundant resources those people had. So Wu Lingxian hoped that even if Su-hong suffered setbacks in the training camp, he would not take it too hard. With his talent, surpassing them was only a matter of time. But when Su-hong merely answered calmly, "I understand. Thank you, Sister Will," Wu Lingxian finally realized that she might have been worrying too much. If Su-hong could remain this calm even while knowing he lacked their resources, then he definitely had hidden cards no one else knew about. Near noon, Su-hong finally boarded the bus arranged by the school when they learned that the training camp was located in the Heavenly Spirit mountain range, a place packed with ferocious beasts. Chen Shan and Li Tu both felt the urge to back out, as if they had already been targeted by high-rank beasts. They could not really be blamed for that. After all, the Heavenly Spirit mountain range was a massive mountain range stretching across New City, Yangcheng, and several other cities. Not only was the spiritual energy inside extremely dense, but there were also countless ferocious beasts, including beast kings comparable to 7th-rank grandmasters. But knowing that the training camp had grandmasters protecting it, Su-hong was not worried about safety. Instead, he began looking forward to life there. After some unknown amount of time, the bus finally stopped in front of a camp. Looking at the martial artists who had arrived earlier inside the camp, Li Tu couldn't help feeling curious about just how strong they really were. But as those people turned their eyes toward them, Chen Shan and Li Tu froze on the spot. They could clearly feel that this group was not easy to mess with. Su-hong, however, showed no fear at all. He simply called for the two of them to follow and walked toward the training camp gate first. But a figure suddenly reached out and stopped them. The person reminded everyone that they had to wait here until all participants arrived, and only then would the entrance assessment begin. Just like that, several dozen minutes passed before the roar of engines came from the distance. A convoy, made up of dozens of luxury cars, slowly stopped in front of the gate. Then several well-dressed young masters stepped out of the cars. From the surrounding crowd, Su-hong learned that the one leading them was Wang Tiantua, the son of the city lord. Not only did he have 95% fire attribute compatibility, but he had also awakened a special physique. The man who called himself the most handsome man under heaven was Lin Xinghe from the Lin family, and his strength was already infinitely close to second-rank martial artist level. As for the final girl, her name was Xiao Yan. She was an extremely rare spiritual mind master among martial artists. Watching the three of them walk to the very front of the line, Su-hong felt an inexplicable urge rising in his heart. So these were the 3 top geniuses Wu Linxian had mentioned. He really wanted to see just how talented they were. But just as Su Hong was thinking this, the person in charge began announcing the rules of the entrance assessment. The real training camp was located deep inside the Heavenly Spirit mountain range, a full 30 kilometers away from this temporary camp. Tokens had been planted inside the ferocious beasts along the way. Only those who obtained a token and reached the real training camp within 8 hours would qualify to enter. The person in charge also answered the buzzcut man's question. If someone ran into a high-rank beast, then they could only blame their own bad luck and accept elimination. Of course, when that happened, someone would step in to save their lives. Everyone immediately felt that the assessment was unfair. After all, a strong participant might be eliminated due to bad luck, while a weaker one might pass purely because of luck. But the person in charge snapped at them to shut up, saying that this world was not for playing house. If they did not want to be eliminated, they needed to act carefully and learn to avoid danger. As for the strong bullying the weak, that was simply survival of the fittest. At this moment, a man in a suit stepped forward and sneered that only trash spent all day fearing this and fearing that. People like that might as well quit early. The buzzcut man understood that the insult was aimed at him and immediately wanted to rush forward to teach the man a lesson. But, since fighting was forbidden inside the camp, any grudges had to be settled after leaving. Once they were outside, whether they wanted to steal tokens or beat each other up was entirely up to them. The buzzcut man could only suppress his anger and endure it for now. Watching this, Su Hong fell into thought. This training camp really was brutal. It openly encouraged the students to compete and rob each other. But for Su Hong, this was exactly what he wanted. If he ended up fighting this group, wouldn't that mean earning a huge amount of martial points? Meanwhile, the person in charge wasted no more words and directly announced the official start of the entrance assessment. In an instant, everyone rushed out of the camp. The buzzcut man followed closely behind a man in a suit. Today, he had to send that suited bastard packing, as both of them activated their respective guidance techniques. The battle finally erupted deep in the forest. But what they didn't know was that a figure was standing on a treetop, quietly watching everything unfold. Su Hong was thinking that the combat power of these so-called geniuses was far weaker than he had imagined. Even if he defeated them, they probably wouldn't be worth many martial points. Rather than wasting time on them, he might as well hunt a few more ferocious beasts. But unexpectedly, while the two were fighting, they actually started trash-talking each other. Su Hong heard the suited man sneer that peasants would always be peasants, and that hard work was useless. Then he heard the buzzcut man snap back, telling him not to compare him with those poor workers. Su Hong was forced to activate hunting mode. Since martial points were delivering themselves to his door, he might as well not waste them. To teach them a lesson, Su Hong directly called out and stopped the two who were still fighting. At first, both of them thought Su Hong was there to break up the fight, so they threatened him to get lost or they would beat him up too. But Su Hong merely gave a faint sneer. "Don't misunderstand, I'm only here to either beat you two to death or get beaten to death by you two." Hearing this, the buzzcut man immediately rushed forward with a punch, thinking Su Hong was asking to die. But Su Hong's reaction was clearly much faster than his. With just one kick, the buzzcut man was sent flying right in front of the suited man. The suited man froze in disbelief. He couldn't believe that an opponent close to his own level couldn't even withstand a single move from Su Hong. And just as he was stunned, a sharp rush of wind suddenly sounded beside his ear. In the next instant, he also took a heavy blow straight to the head from Su Hong. Looking at the two unconscious men, Su Hong even kindly reminded them not to look down on ordinary cultivators. What he didn't know was that everything he had done had been seen by the examiners in the monitoring room. One examiner couldn't help complaining that Su Hong had no martial ethics at all. Those two were in the middle of a hot-blooded duel, and this kid just jumped out and one-shot both of them. Although the chief examiner verbally agreed, he had already developed some interest in Su Hong. After some time, the unconscious suited man woke up first. Remembering how Su Hong had knocked him down, he gritted his teeth in anger and swore that he would find Su Hong and tear him apart. Right then, the buzzcut man also woke up. The two unfortunate brothers looked at each other. Not only did they immediately bury the hatchet, they even supported each other as they went off to find Su Hong for revenge. As for what happened to those two, Su Hong didn't care. He had already reached the deeper part of the forest. Suddenly, a group of ferocious beasts blocked his path. Seeing that it was yet another group of early Tier 1 giant tusk boars, Su Hong felt a little speechless. He could barely remember how many groups like this he had run into already. Even so, he still used Thunderclap Fist and killed all of the giant tusk boars. The main problem was that ever since Su Hong had grown stronger, the martial points rewarded by these low-rank beasts had become smaller and smaller. Right now, The most important thing was finding an entrance token. Unfortunately, even after searching through the stomachs of these beasts, he still didn't find a single token. Realizing that only higher-level ferocious beasts were likely to contain tokens, Su-hong continued sprinting deeper into the forest. But after sprinting several kilometers in a row, Su-hong still couldn't figure out why he hadn't seen even a single ferocious beast. Just as that thought crossed his mind, a massive black shadow suddenly appeared before him. It was actually a late Tier 1 Nightshade Black Tiger. Seeing this, the corner of Su-hong's mouth lifted slightly. Finally, it wasn't another low-rank beast. In the next second, he decisively fired a void-breaking finger. As expected, the Nightshade Black Tiger was instantly blasted to the ground by the terrifying impact. Su-hong quickly grabbed his spear and finished it off. Looking at the fallen beast, he couldn't help sighing inwardly. With his current strength, killing a late Tier 1 ferocious beast was like taking candy from a baby. Then, Su-hong cut open the Nightshade Black Tiger's stomach and began searching carefully. The moment he took out the token, the corner of Su-hong's mouth twitched. To find the single token, he had actually spent nearly 3 full hours. From the fact that early Tier 1 boars had been everywhere at the beginning, while now it took half an hour just to find one high-stage tiger, Su-hong guessed that the deeper he went into the mountains, the higher the rank of the beasts would be, but their numbers would also decrease. In other words, staying near the outer area and hunting low-rank beasts might actually earn him more martial points. Instead of chasing quality, it was better to stack quantity. With that in mind, Su-hong made a decision. In the remaining 5 hours before the assessment ended, he would gather enough martial points to max out his mortal body progress bar. Just like that. After 2 full hours of hunting, the outer forest was littered with beast corpses. But just as Su-hong killed another giant tusk boar, a mid-Tier 1 berserk black bear suddenly launched a sneak attack from behind. Fortunately, Su-hong dodged in time. After fighting more than a dozen low-rank beasts, he had finally run into another mid-stage beast, so he immediately began charging up Thunderclap Fist. With just one punch, the berserk black bear turned into a streak of light and was blasted backward. However, that attack did not kill it outright. After slamming into a tree trunk, the bear let out an ear-piercing roar. By the time it recovered, what reflected in its eyes was Su-hong's figure, rushing toward it at high speed. Because this punch used his full strength, it actually smashed through both the berserk black bear and the tree trunk behind it, snapping the tree in half. Even Su-hong himself had not expected that after raising his mortal body past 60%, his raw physical strength alone would be enough to kill a mid-Tier 1 ferocious beast. After that, Su-hong opened his system panel and saw that he had already earned 254.5 martial points. He was only a little over 100 points away from completely maxing out his mortal body progress bar. As long as he gathered enough martial points in the remaining 3 hours, he could head straight to the camp and complete the entrance assessment. But at that moment, an earth-shattering shockwave suddenly erupted from deep within the forest. Immediately after, the sky was covered by a massive shadow that blotted out the sun. Su-hong recognized it at a glance. It was the legendary Golden Rock Beast King. As the Golden Rock Beast King gradually rose into the air, Su-hong instantly felt the pressure around him multiply. So this was the power of a Beast King level ferocious beast. Just one flap of its wings could unleash such terrifying force. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a giant boulder in the distance blocked most of the impact for Su-hong, allowing him to avoid disaster. At the same time, Su-hong couldn't help thinking that he had indeed grown a little proud of his recent strength. But in front of top-tier powerhouses like this, he was nothing more than an insignificant speck. Suddenly, Su-hong's pupils contracted violently, because a figure was standing in the sky 100 meters above the ground, facing off against the Golden Rock Beast King. As a 7th-rank Grandmaster, Qin Tianli spoke with overwhelming dominance, saying that he was borrowing this territory and telling the Golden Rock Beast King to go back where it came from. Unexpectedly, the Golden Rock Beast King actually spoke in human language, replying coldly, "I never said I was lending the Heavenly Spirit mountain range to you." Hearing this, Qin Tianli acted without hesitation, deciding to beat the Golden Rock Beast King until it agreed. As the two sides completed their first clash, the Golden Rock Beast King let out an ear-piercing cry, seemingly trying to use sound waves to weaken Qin Tianli's combat power, but it had clearly underestimated the might of a Grandmaster. Qin Tianli turned into a blur and roared, "Too damn noisy." The moment his words fell, this Beast King-level ferocious beast was reduced to a punching bag. After hundreds of consecutive punches, the Golden Rock Beast King was finally knocked back by a single blow. Qin Tianli then gave it his final warning. "I don't want to repeat myself. Get back where you came from. I, Xin Tianli, am borrowing this land. Realizing that it could not beat him at all, the Golden Rock Beast King could only leave behind a threat and slink away with its tail between its legs. Seeing this, Xin Tianli took a deep breath. In the next second, his voice resounded across the sky. I am Xin Tianli, a 7th rank Grandmaster. All students do not panic. The assessment continues. Hearing that overwhelming declaration, Su Hong couldn't help sighing inwardly. So this was the power of a human Grandmaster. One day, he would reach that level too. Meanwhile, Xin Tianli had already returned to the air above the training camp. Before landing, he was still cursing the Golden Rock Beast King for not knowing what was good for it. He had only borrowed its territory as a trial ground, yet it insisted on coming back just to get beaten up. The two 5th rank martial artists quickly praised him, saying he truly lived up to the title of Grandmaster and had beaten the fight right out of a Beast King famous for its physical toughness. But Xin Tianli told them to save the bootlicking. If they had time for that, they should hurry back to the monitoring room and see who had managed to withstand the Golden Rock Beast King's pressure just now. Through the surveillance replay, the three of them found that most students had been completely unable to move under the pressure. What caught Xin Tianli's attention, however, was that someone had killed a late Tier 1 Black Tiger and still easily endured the pressure afterward. He learned that this person was Wang Tiantuo, the son of New City's City Lord. Wang Tiantuo was a late 1st rank martial artist with vitality as high as 340. Aside from having 95% fire attribute compatibility, he also possessed the immensely powerful barbarian god body. Xin Tianli gave him high praise. Bin Xinghe and Xiaoyan also earned his approval. One of them relied on 96% wind attribute compatibility, along with late 1st rank strength, to escape the pressure range using agile movement techniques. The other only had mid 1st rank strength and 95% wood attribute compatibility, but she could use spiritual mind power to offset the impact. When Xin Tianli asked whether anyone else had withstood the impact, especially students from New City First High, Bai Mu looked through the files and said that the dozen or so people who endured the pressure were mostly from major families. As for the 3 students from First High, they had all only broken through to martial artist level recently. Hearing this, Xin Tianli immediately lost interest and waved his hand, telling Bai Mu not to continue. He felt that New City First High did not live up to its reputation. But unexpectedly, Lin Ze beside him suddenly exclaimed, "What's going on with this guy? He just went through the Golden Rock's pressure, and he still has the strength to hunt ferocious beasts?" The person on the screen was none other than Su Hong, who was wildly slaughtering giant tusk boars. As for Bai Mu, the moment she saw the file, her mouth twitched uncontrollably, and even her words became unsteady. "He's that monster from New City First High." After hearing that, Lin Ze snatched the file from Bai Mu's hand. He wanted to see what kind of monster could make her make such a fuss in front of a Grandmaster, but in the next second, Lin Ze froze completely. This guy really was a monster. That instantly sparked Xin Tianli's curiosity. As he tore the file free, he criticized them, saying, "You two are 5th rank martial artists at least. What kind of genius haven't you seen before? Looks like you're still too young and lacking composure." But after taking one look, Xin Tianli's eyes instantly became bloodshot. Only one thought remained in his mind. What the hell, is this kid even human? The file showed that Su Hong not only had 100% compatibility with all attributes, but also possessed a special physique. With raw physical strength alone, he could rival a late 1st rank martial artist. At that moment, Xin Tianli was even more excited than the two of them. He simply couldn't believe that a monster like this had actually appeared in a backwater place like New City. Then he tightly clenched the file in his hand. A once-in-a-thousand-years monster like this? He had truly struck gold. After calming himself down, Xin Tianli asked Bai Mu why Su Hong was still only at early 1st rank. With his talent, his vitality should not be only 123. When Bai Mu answered that Su Hong was cultivating all 7 guidance techniques at the same time, Xin Tianli instantly flew into a rage, cursing the president of the Starlight Martial Artist Association as an idiot. Something this important had not been explained clearly to the kid. If this kept going, even an immortal would be ruined by her. At that moment, someone came in to report that the students had begun arriving at the training camp one after another. When Xin Tianli went outside, the first people he saw were Wang Tiantuo and the other 2 top geniuses. After that, many more participants staggered into the camp one after another. Since he still had not seen Su Hong, Xin Tianli could only remain in the air above the camp and wait. He couldn't help muttering inwardly, wondering why that monster named Su Hong still hadn't arrived. Had the kid gotten lost? He had better not let this precious treasure get eliminated. Only when he saw a figure slowly approaching did Qin Tianli finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Brat, you finally made it." 5 more minutes, and the assessment would have been over. As for Su Hong, he also felt relieved. He had finally made it in time. He had been so focused on earning martial points that he had almost forgotten the time. But the moment Su Hong walked into the center of the camp, everyone looked at him curiously, wondering why he looked so battered. The suited man and the buzzcut man also noticed Su Hong, but since they had just passed the assessment, now was not the right time to make a move. They could only decide to find another chance for revenge later. Even Wang Tiantuo, Lin Xinghe, and Xiao Yan became interested in Su Hong because someone who passed at the very last moment was either an expert or a complete rookie. After gathering all the students who had passed the assessment, Lin Zhe began introducing the camp's facilities and rules. The camp had a gravity training room, a movement technique training room, and a ferocious beast combat room. It also had a martial arts pavilion, where students could exchange contribution points for martial techniques, pills, and weapons, with the currently available highest grade being level 1. But to use any of these facilities, they needed enough contribution points. And there was only one way to earn contribution points: passing different training subjects. Those who performed exceptionally well would also receive extra rewards. After the rules were announced, Lin Zhe told everyone to follow him back to the dorms and rest. But once Su Hong heard how the system worked, his interest only grew. This training camp was exactly the right place for him. The moment he returned to his assigned single dorm room, his first thought was simple. From now on, he no longer had to worry about anyone seeing him cultivate or upgrade. After confirming that no one else was in the room, he immediately sat cross-legged on the bed and poured all the martial points he had accumulated into his mortal body. Soon, a burning heat swept through his entire body, and the system notified him that his mortal body had met the conditions for evolution. In the next moment, his whole body was covered in a blood-red glow, and only one thought remained in his mind. What kind of heaven-defying physique would this evolve into? As all of his martial points fully flowed into his mortal body, Su Hong felt as if the blood inside him had begun to boil, while thick blood energy surged out from within him. Fortunately, the pain did not last too long. Once that energy gradually settled down, he knew that his mortal body had successfully completed its evolution. Su Hong immediately opened the system panel and saw that his evolved physique was called the Overlord body, known as the strongest physique in terms of pure strength. He was stunned for a moment. He had never heard of this physique before, and the progress percentage behind its spirit rank clearly meant that the Overlord body could continue upgrading. But thinking too much about it now was pointless. He quickly got dressed and prepared to test just how absurd the Overlord body's strength really was. To his surprise, the moment he casually picked up his spear, he crushed a dent straight into the shaft. This was a C-rank alloy spear worth $60,000, yet with one light grip, he had nearly ruined it on the spot. But then again, he had picked this spear up in the wild outside New City and hadn't spent a single cent on it. So even if it broke, it didn't really count as a loss. Still, this made it even more urgent for him to gather contribution points in exchange for a higher quality spear. At the martial arts pavilion, the moment he remembered that wearing a weighted vest could earn contribution points, he immediately had a target. Meanwhile, quite a few students had already gathered in the camp warehouse, all exclaiming that Wang Tiantuo, the son of the city lord, was an absolute freak. It turned out that Wang Tiantuo could still jump in place while wearing a 3,000-kilogram weighted vest. A normal first-rank martial artist could only handle a few hundred kilograms at most. Even Lin Xinghe and Xiao Yan couldn't help calling him a brute bull, saying his strength was basically no different from a monster's. This scene happened to be seen by Qin Tianlie and the others in the monitoring room, and they also sighed in amazement. Wang Tiantuo's barbarian god body truly lived up to its name, but Bai Mu was clearly more concerned about something else. She asked Grandmaster Qin about Su Hong cultivating all 7 guidance techniques at once. Should we find a chance to explain it to him tomorrow? Qin Tianli shook his head and said they could not be so direct. Geniuses were proud. The harder they tried to persuade him, the more likely it was to backfire. They had to find a way to make him give it up on his own. As he spoke, he turned to Lin Zhe and asked whether the martial artists arranged for the night raid had finished gathering. Lin Zhe gave a wicked smile and said it would take a little more time, but these students had just finished the entrance assessment and were probably relaxing. A sudden attack right now would definitely be exciting. But then Qin Tianli added that Lin Zhe should arrange a late first-rank martial artist for Su Hong. He wanted that kid to be completely crushed first. Then he would explain the drawbacks of cultivating 7 guidance techniques. By then, Su Hong would naturally listen and give it up. Hearing this, Lin Zhe and Bai Mu both felt that Qin Tianli had lost his mind. A late first-rank martial artist had vitality over 400, and combat power close to 5,000. If Su-han's Dao heart was truly shattered, wouldn't they be destroying this monster with their own hands? But Qin Tianli did not see it that way. In his eyes, if Su-han's martial will could be shattered that easily, then it would only prove that he was trash to begin with. Su-han knew nothing about what was about to happen. At that moment, he had already gone straight to the camp warehouse, and from the conversations ahead, he learned that Wang Tiantuo seemed to have gone to the gravity training room. Since everyone had gone to watch Wang Tiantuo train, Su-han figured he might as well check it out later too. After picking up the smart wristband used to calculate points, he had only just walked over to the weighted vests when the 10-ton number on one of them startled him. Who the hell was supposed to wear something like that? But after actually trying it, he realized he could barely put it on. The problem was that it would severely affect his movement. After a series of tests, Su-han finally chose a 5-ton weighted vest. This weight did not feel too difficult for him, and he could still move freely. For his current state, it was just right. Still, he couldn't help wondering how much weight Wang Tiantuo was using. The guy was a late first-rank martial artist, so he should be a little stronger, right? To understand how these top geniuses trained. Su-han quickly put on the weighted vest and walked outside. When he arrived at the gravity training room, everyone around him was talking about how Wang Tiantuo was basically not human. The guy had entered the gravity room without even taking off his 3-ton weighted vest, and he had set the gravity to double. But when Su-han saw Wang Tiantuo on the monitor struggling a little under 6 tons of total pressure, he suddenly realized something. He might have seriously underestimated how powerful the overlord body was. Otherwise, Wang Tiantuo's weighted vest would not have been only 3 tons. Just then he noticed 2 familiar figures nearby. When Su-han asked why they were not going in to train, Chen Shan and Li Tu could only explain that everyone here was more monstrous than the last. If they went in, they would definitely be compared to the others, and that would be way too embarrassing. Su-han patted Chen Shan on the shoulder and asked helplessly, "That's the reason?" Seeing him stride toward the gravity room entrance, the two hurriedly advised him to go in later, or he would definitely be laughed at. The people around them also started mocking him. In their eyes, Su-han was not even wearing a gravity suit. Yet, he wanted to surpass Wang Tiantuo in gravity training. It was simply ridiculous, but Su-han ignored them. After all, gravity rooms were extremely expensive to build, and only a few powerful families could afford them. Ordinary martial artists like him normally had no chance to use one, so there was no way he would waste this opportunity. Right now, he was wearing a 5-ton weighted vest. If he turned on double gravity, that would be equivalent to 10 tons of pressure, and he could probably only last a little over 10 minutes. So, Su-han eventually set the gravity to 1.5 times. That way, he could at least hold on longer. But the moment he pressed the start button, his entire body felt like it weighed a ton, becoming terrifyingly heavy. Seeing Su-han's performance on the monitor, the people mocking him laughed even louder, saying that a bottom feeder was a bottom feeder. He was already struggling at only 1.5 times gravity. Fortunately, Su-han quickly adapted to the weight. At the same time, he realized that cultivating guidance techniques under this kind of pressure was much harder, but the cultivation speed was clearly much faster than outside. Just like that, 2 hours passed. When Su-han let out a long breath and ended his cultivation state, he discovered that aside from his lightning and fire guidance techniques, all the other guidance techniques had actually risen by 1 level. Even his vitality had increased from 126 to 130. That instantly excited him. If the gravity room was already this effective, then the movement technique room and the ferocious beast combat room definitely would not be bad either. But the moment she walked out of the gravity room, the 2 people not far away immediately mocked him in a sarcastic tone. "Look at that bottom feeder. He came out so quickly and he's already covered in sweat from just 1.5 times gravity. If it were us, we could probably sleep in there." But when he took off his jacket to cool down, those people's impression of him improved a little. Still, judging from how strained he had looked earlier, they guessed his weighted vest was probably 500 kilograms at most. Even if he had some strength, he was still nowhere near those geniuses who trained with thousands of kilograms. Fortunately, Wang Tiantuo was about to finish his training, and everyone's attention was quickly drawn back to him. As Wang Tiantuo walked out of the gravity room drenched in sweat, the weighted vest he took off instantly left everyone frozen in place. At that moment, only one thought remained in their minds. With that kind of weight alone, Wang Tiantuo's physical strength was absolutely number 1 in the training camp. Even Ling Xinghe smiled and admitted that when it came to strength, no one here could compare to him. So why not go to the movement technique room and compare movement instead? But Wang Tiantuo rejected him without hesitation. Only an idiot would compare movement techniques with Lin Xinghe, especially since Lin Xinghe practiced an E-rank movement technique and had the wind attribute, which was famous for speed. Hearing this, Su Hong immediately became interested. The Overlord body gave him an absolute advantage in strength, but it could not make up for his weakness in movement techniques. After Lin Xinghe entered the movement technique training room, several well-informed students immediately cried out, "So this is the E-rank movement technique, Flying Swan Cloud Step. Isn't this way too strong?" On the monitor, Lin Xinghe faced arrows at maximum difficulty, yet still relied on his agile movement to dodge every single attack perfectly. He even had enough stare energy to scatter flower petals and strike all kinds of flamboyant poses. Su Hong looked at the system panel and couldn't help sighing. This really was a good movement technique. Then, without hesitation, he entered the consciousness space and began training. What he didn't know was that the crowd's attention soon shifted toward him. Seeing him actually imitate Lin Xinghe's movements, everyone immediately laughed at him, thinking he must be an idiot. Did he really think he could learn Flying Swan Cloud Step just by watching it once? But Su Hong knew nothing about the outside world's comments. He was fully immersed in the consciousness space, following Lin Xinghe's movements to train the technique. Only when the system notification came, saying that Flying Swan Cloud Step had officially reached the beginner stage, did he finally stop moving and end the practice. At the same time, he couldn't help complaining inwardly that Lin Xinghe's movements were way too flamboyant. If he had ever seen a normal version of Flying Swan Cloud Step, he would never have learned this guy's style. Still, now that he had learned the movement technique, there was no need to waste more time in the movement room. The extra time could be spent in the ferocious beast room, hunting beasts, earning more martial points, and raising his vitality. But the moment he returned to reality, he heard people discussing how his movements just now had been ridiculously flamboyant and actually carried a bit of Lin Xinghe's signature flair. If they tried it, they definitely could not imitate it that well. Once Su Hong realized what had happened, he froze awkwardly on the spot. Had he actually made all those flamboyant poses in real life too? Thinking of this, he turned and ran, silently cursing that he would never use Lin Xinghe as a learning template again. Watching him leave, the revenge duo guessed that he was probably heading to the ferocious beast room, so they decided to block the entrance and beat the living daylights out of him once he came out. Before long, a large crowd had gathered in front of the ferocious beast room. It turned out that Xiao Yan wanted to challenge Wang Tiantuo in a ferocious beast hunting contest to determine who was truly #1 in the training camp. Wang Tiantuo, however, did not take it seriously. He did not believe Xiao Yan could beat his barbarian god body with spiritual mind power alone. Su Hong happened to see all of this. Curious about how spiritual mind masters fought, he immediately decided to watch first, then head into the ferocious beast room to earn martial points afterward. When he saw Xiao Yan slowly floating in the surveillance footage, Su Hong froze on the spot. Walking through the air was supposed to be something only Grandmaster level experts could do. So this was what a spiritual mind master was like? Before he could even recover from the shock, Xiao Yan had already made her move. In a single instant, 3 late Tier 1 black tigers were killed at the same time, and when another black tiger tried to ambush her from behind, she actually used spiritual mind power to forcibly bind it in midair. With a light sweep of her arm, the ambushing black tiger was instantly cut down as well. When Su Hong realized that streak of light was a dagger, his entire body trembled. Walking through the air, controlling objects from a distance, and restraining enemies directly? No wonder every spiritual mind master was absurdly powerful. Just as he was thinking this, someone nearby suddenly cried out, "What's going on?" On the monitor, Xiao Yan had already faced off against a late Tier 1 black scale python, and in front of her floated a massive sword shadow, dozens of meters tall. With a single thought, the giant sword came crashing down and split the black scale python in half on the spot. Seeing this, Su Hong was deeply shaken. She clearly had not brought any weapon earlier, and a sword shadow that huge had to weigh several tons, right? Right then, Lin Xinghe arrived and explained with a smile that this was an A-rank martial technique, unique to spiritual mind masters. The moment he said that, everyone present began discussing it. Another A-rank technique? Seriously, do all you top geniuses have A-rank martial techniques? Don't tell me Wang Tiantuo has one too. Lin Xinghe answered that Wang Tiantuo did indeed have an offensive A-rank martial technique. Su Hong's surprise instantly turned into excitement. This training camp was packed with A-rank techniques. He had definitely come to the right place. However, Wang Tiantuo, on the monitor, was only relying on raw physical strength to kill ferocious beasts. It looked like he had no intention of using any martial technique for now, so Su Hong could only wait for another chance to secretly learn it. But right now, another thought surfaced in Su Hong's mind. He wanted to become a spiritual mind master too. From what he remembered, one needed over 100 spirit points to cross that threshold. His current spirit was only 26.5, which meant he was still 73.5 points short. Converted into martial points, that meant he still needed 735 points. It looked like he really had to start slaughtering beasts. However, Su Hong's figure walking alone toward the ferocious beast room was also seen by the revenge duo. The two immediately followed him, thinking this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. While everyone else was watching Wang Tiantuo and Xiaoyan train, they could rush in and beat Si Hong down. But just as the buzz-cut man approached the entrance, he suddenly cried out, "Holy crap! What is this?" At first, the suited man told him to stop yelling or Su Hong would notice them. But in the next second he shouted too, "Holy crap, is this kid insane?" Because standing in front of Su Hong were more than a dozen late Tier 1 ferocious beasts, all staring at him like prey. In their eyes, this was no different from suicide. Even if they went to call an instructor now, it would be too late. In just a few seconds, Su Hong would be torn to pieces. But what they didn't know was that facing this pack of ferocious beasts, Su Hong was not afraid at all. If anything, he was itching for a fight. Su Hong raised his hand and beckoned at them with clear provocation. The ferocious beasts were instantly enraged and swarmed toward him all at once. Su Hong immediately used Flying Swan Cloud Step, easily dodging the giant claw red scorpion's attacks. At the same time, he condensed Void-Breaking Finger in both hands. In just an instant, the closest red scorpions were killed on the spot. Watching Su Hong slaughter his way through the beast pack on the monitor, the revenge duo was completely stunned. They even wondered as they were dreaming, because if this were a mid-first rank martial artist, they would still be dead, for sure. But when the buzz-cut man said that movement technique looked familiar, the suited man suddenly reacted. Wasn't that Lin Xinghe's Flying Swan Cloud Step? Yet, they both knew very well that Su Hong came from an ordinary first high. Logically, he should never have had access to such a high-quality movement technique. The only possibility was that he had watched Lin Xinghe perform it earlier and forcibly mastered it with his own talent. The more the buzz-cut man thought about it, the guiltier he felt. He couldn't help suggesting that maybe they should forget about revenge, because even if the two of them teamed up, they probably still wouldn't be enough for Su Hong to beat. But the suited man couldn't swallow that anger. He refused to accept that a poor student from an ordinary school could stand above him, much less possess such heaven-defying talent. Unexpectedly, the buzz-cut man raised a trembling hand and told him that before he went looking for trouble with Su Hong, he had better look inside first. With just one look, the wooden club in the suited man's hand slipped and fell to the ground. Because during the short time they had been talking, Su Hong had already killed all those dozen-plus late Tier 1 ferocious beasts. What left Su Hong speechless was that all those beasts together had only given him 81 martial points. Clearly, the stronger he became, the harder martial points were to earn. Just then, the second round of ferocious beasts was released into the combat room. Su Hong understood that he had no time to rest, so he immediately stood up and prepared to continue fighting. But, unexpectedly, the leading three-eyed mad lion launched a sneak attack first. Unfortunately, it had clearly underestimated the human standing in front of it. Su Hong threw out one perfect-level Vajra Fest, and the three-eyed mad lion was smashed to the ground, on the spot. That scene immediately terrified the other beasts, making them instinctively begin backing away. Seeing this, Su Hong charged forward instead. "Where do you think you're going? Hand over all your martial points." From that moment on, wherever he went, not a single beast could withstand even one exchange. Outside the ferocious beast room, the revenge duo was already standing there like statues. In the end, the suited man was the first to break the silence. Revenge only creates more revenge. "I've decided to forgive him," the buzz-cut man quickly added. "Then let's hurry up and leave before that monster beats us up again." Just as the two were about to sneak away from the area in defeat, someone suddenly called out to them. "Weren't you two going to get revenge? What happened? Did that kid already beat you half to death?" The moment they heard the words, "beat him," both of them froze in place. Only one thought remained in their minds. Beat him? If they had not been smart enough, they would probably be lying on the ground like dead dogs right now. At the same time, Wang Tiantuo and Xiaoyan happened to walk out of the ferocious beast room. Everyone soon learned that Wang Tiantuo had earned a total of 280 contribution points, while Xiaoyan had earned 270. The crowd immediately exploded. After all, one late Tier 1 ferocious beast was only worth 5 contribution points. Calculated that way, the two of them had each killed around 50 to 60 beasts. The contribution points from the weighted vest training were also settled at this time. Wang Tiantuo received 100 points, while Xiaoyan only received 50. The others could not compare with these two top geniuses, but most of them had still earned around 20 to 30 contribution points. But when the crowd began discussing how Lin Xinghe's score would definitely be insane too, and how everyone else was doomed to miss the top 3 as long as those 3 monsters were around, the buzz-cut man and the suited man felt a smug sense of satisfaction. These people were too ignorant. There was an even more terrifying monster in the training camp, and that guy stood completely above those 3 freaks. 1 hour later, Su Hong finally stopped hunting ferocious beasts. After such a long stretch of high-intensity fighting, even Su Hong with the overlord body was starting to feel seriously exhausted. Unfortunately, he was still quite far from gathering the 735.5 martial points he needed. The only good news was that hunting ferocious beasts and using the weighted vest had earned him a total of 700 contribution points, so he could at least visit the martial arts pavilion and see what he could exchange for. So, under the cover of night, Su Hong went to the martial arts pavilion. The girl at the front desk quickly handed him an item list. After checking it, Su Hong realized that pills did not require too many contribution points, but anything involving an E-rank martial technique or movement technique started at 2,000 contribution points at the cheapest. Just as he was thinking about what to exchange for, the front desk girl became a little impatient. In her eyes, Su Hong was only an early first-rank martial artist, so he probably couldn't afford a single thing here. He was simply wasting her time. Even when Su Hong asked whether the spirit-gathering pill on the list was the kind of pill that could raise spirit, her tone remained perfunctory. She merely explained that the spirit-gathering pill only worked the first time it was taken, and the higher its grade, the stronger the effect. Hearing that, Su Hong immediately found the highest grade spirit-gathering pill on the list and saw that it cost exactly 500 contribution points. So he said right away, "Give me 1 4th-rank spirit-gathering pill first." That completely caught the front desk girl off guard. She couldn't help reminding him that a 4th-rank spirit-gathering pill cost 500 contribution points, not 50. But when she saw that Su Hong's points wristband showed a full 700, she was instantly shocked, speechless. Seeing her attitude make a complete 180 as she handed over the packaged spirit-gathering pill, Su Hong simply exchanged for a lightning fire dual attribute alloy spear as well. After returning to his dorm, he began summarizing everything he had gained today. This C-rank lightning fire spear had cost him 200 contribution points. His vitality and guidance techniques had also improved, and he had earned 490 martial points. Calculated together, his gains today were greater than what he had achieved over the entire previous week. If he used all those martial points to raise his spirit, then added that to his original 26.5 spirit, he would still be 25.5 points short of the 100-point threshold. Now he could only hope that this spirit-gathering pill would give him the full 25.5 spirit points he needed. With that thought, Su Hong swallowed the pill in one gulp. Spiritual Mind Master, he was going to become one for sure. Unexpectedly, the moment the spirit-gathering pill entered his stomach, its effect quickly spread. Not only did it ease the exhausted nerves he had strained from hunting ferocious beasts, but even his mind became incredibly clear, as if everything around him could be sensed with perfect sharpness. When Su Hong opened his eyes again, his spirit had risen from 26.5 to 50.5, increasing by a full 24 points. Unfortunately, even after adding the spirit that 490.5 martial points could provide, he was still 0.5 points short of the spiritual mind master threshold. Su Hong was left feeling a little speechless. If he had known this would happen, he would have killed one more ferocious beast earlier. Now, he could only find a way to gather the final 5.5 martial points tomorrow. What he didn't know was that at this moment, a large group of martial artists had already gathered inside the training camp warehouse. They were all discussing which new students they were about to ambush in the upcoming night raid. The leading few were especially curious. Bu Jingfeng was clearly training at a martial arts university, so why had he also been called over like them to babysit these so-called geniuses? Bu Jingfeng was clearly irritated by this. He coldly said that if he were still in high school, this bunch of so-called geniuses would not even be qualified to serve as his sparring partners. The tall, burly man laughed and said that the Wang Tiantuo he was responsible for had vitality as high as 340. If they really compared him to Bu Jingfeng back then, Wang Tiantuo was actually quite a bit stronger. The other two also showed their own assignment forms. One was responsible for Lin Xinghe, who had 310 vitality, while the other was assigned to a spiritual mind master whose combat power was far beyond that of ordinary martial artists. Only then did Bu Jingfeng look down at his own assignment form. The next second, he cried out in disbelief. "Why are all your students so strong, while mine is some little trash with only 123 vitality?" The moment he said that, everyone gathered around, all thinking that the higher-ups must have made a mistake. After all, Bu Jingfeng was the strongest person among them. Logically, there was no reason to send him to ambush some early first-rank student. Unexpectedly, Qin Tianli's voice suddenly rang out. There's no mistake. Your opponent is him. This Su Hong is not as simple as he looks. Qin Tianli continued, his combat power is enough to rival a late first-rank martial artist. It's not written in your file, but you'll understand once you fight him. Hearing this, the others were all shocked. They had never heard of a new student with such low vitality being able to rival a late first-rank martial artist. But Bu Jingfeng still couldn't get interested. In his eyes, his own vitality was already close to 500. Even if Su Hong really was a monster, fighting him would still be bullying a greenhorn who had barely stepped onto the path. But Qin Tianli suddenly slapped the back of his head. If I told you to fight, then fight. Cut the crap. And go all out. It'd be best if you beat Su Hong until he doubts his own existence. Bu Jingfeng was completely confused. He even wondered if Qin Tianli had some kind of grudge against the student. If he actually crippled the kid, he was not taking responsibility. But when Bu Jingfeng looked up, he saw Qin Tianli wearing a terrifying smile. Just beat him until he's crippled. If you really cripple him, not only will I not blame you, I'll even give you a generous reward. Although everyone felt that this new student named Su Hong was kind of pitiful, they still followed the orders and began moving out. After they reached the dorm building and found their assigned targets, confused shouts quickly rang through the night, and someone even yelled in panic, asking if he could at least put on a pair of underwear first. Hearing the commotion outside, Su Hong instantly woke up. With just one glance, he saw that his door had been sliced open by some kind of sharp weapon. Immediately after that, a figure rushed into the room. Then a blade slashed heavily into the spot where Su Hong had been moments earlier. This made Su Hong fall into thought. He had heard that the myriad races often hunted human geniuses to weaken humanity's strength. Could this person be one of them? So he casually grabbed the lightning fire spear beside him and began estimating the opponent's strength in his mind. Based on the movement technique the person had used while leaping into the air, Su Hong quickly realized that this was not someone from the myriad races, but a human late first-rank martial artist. At that thought, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly, because as long as he defeated this person, he could gather the remaining 5.5 martial points and officially become a spiritual mind master. Seeing Su Hong take a fighting stance and prepare to fight, Bu Jingfeng froze. Was this guy out of his mind? He was only an early first-rank martial artist, yet instead of running away, he actually chose to face him head-on. However, the moment their weapons truly collided, Bu Jingfeng finally realized that everything Qin Tianli had said was true. This kid's combat power really could rival a late first-rank martial artist, and in terms of raw strength, he even faintly surpassed ordinary late first-rank fighters. But Su Hong only had one thought in his mind. So what if he was late first rank? It wasn't like Su Hong had never fought one before. In the next second, Su Hong let out a sharp shout, and the strength in his hands surged again. Bu Jingfeng was instantly forced back by that terrifying power. Feeling his entire body tremble from the impact, Bu Jingfeng became even more certain that something was seriously wrong with this kid. But he also knew very well that battles between martial artists were never decided by raw strength alone. He quickly wrapped a layer of pale purple flame around his weapon. Seeing this, Su Hong also infused lightning attribute power into his lightning fire spear. After all, this was his first time facing a fire attribute martial technique head-on, so he had to take it seriously. In the next second, Bu Jingfeng's B-rank martial technique, Flame Slash, was fully charged. Su Hong immediately judged that this move was far more powerful than Void Breaking Finger, even though both were B-rank techniques. So instead of retreating, he gripped the lightning fire spear with all his strength and chose to clash head-on. A violent explosion erupted. Cold sweat instantly poured down Bu Jingfeng's back. Only one terrifying fact remained in his mind. This guy had not used any martial technique at all, yet he had blocked Flame Slash purely with external lightning release. Talent like this defied all logic. Even so, Bu Jingfeng forced himself to speak with confidence. What a shame. Looks like you don't know any lightning attribute spear technique. Otherwise, I might not have been able to beat you this easily. Su Hong, however, remained completely calm. True, I don't know any lightning attribute spear technique. But what if I add this? As soon as he finished speaking, crimson flames rapidly wrapped around the spear. In the next moment, Su Hong's entire body was surrounded by both lightning and fire. Bu Jingfeng's pupils shrank violently. How is this possible? Why can you fuse two attributes together? After all, every martial artist knew that different attributes naturally repelled one another. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, Bu Jingfeng would have always believed attribute fusion was nothing more than a legend. But by the time he recovered from his shock, Su Hong had already charged forward with the lightning fire spear, carrying the fused power of lightning and fire. In a blind panic, Bu Jingfeng immediately released a flame slash again to counterattack. But before his weapon could even touch the spear tip, it was instantly knocked away by the lightning fire power. Immediately after that, an even more terrifying energy erupted. With a thunderous boom, the massive impact blasted Bu Jingfeng straight through the wall and sent him flying out of the dorm, before losing consciousness. Only one thought remained in Bu Jingfeng's mind. That power was way too ridiculous. At the same time, Su Hong was clearly exhausted as well. After all, using lightning fire power consumed far too much energy. But when he saw the system notification, all of that exhaustion was instantly thrown to the back of his mind, because the final 5.5 martial points he needed to become a spiritual mind master had finally been gathered. What he didn't know was that just a few seconds earlier, Qin Tianlei and Bai Mu had already arrived outside the dorm building at the exact time they had calculated. The two of them had even prepared several different speeches in advance. The moment Bu Jingfeng defeated Su Hong, they planned to step in and persuade him to give up cultivating multiple guidance techniques. At first, everything seemed to be going exactly as they expected. Before long, a figure smashed through the wall and flew out of the window. Then, the figure crashed heavily right in front of Qin Tianlei and Bai Mu. But when they saw that the unconscious person was actually Bu Jingfeng, both of them dropped their jaws, wondering if their eyes had betrayed them. Bai Mu was the first to react. If Bu Jingfeng was lying here, then this night raid had already failed, and all the speeches they had prepared were now completely useless. But right then, 3 more figures flew out of the windows one after another, and they landed perfectly beside Bu Jingfeng. They were none other than the martial artists sent to ambush the other 3 top geniuses in the camp. Wang Tiantuo and the others stood by the broken windows, telling Qin Tianlei to send stronger opponents next time, because these guys weren't even enough for a warm-up. Suddenly, Wang Tiantuo noticed that there were actually 4 people lying on the ground. Although Lin Xinghe realized someone had finished even faster than them, he assumed that the martial artist must have been too weak and had simply been casually swatted away like a bug. Hearing this, Bai Mu's mouth twitched uncontrollably. Weak? Bu Jingfeng was the strongest one out of all 4 of them. But in Qin Tianlei's eyes, it was normal for Wang Tiantuo and the other 2 to win. What truly defied common sense was that Su Hong, an early first-rank martial artist, had faced a near second-rank fighter and still finished before them. How exactly had that kid done it? Was it a top-tier martial technique? Or a top-tier physique? Just as Qin Tianlei was deep in thought, Lin Zhe suddenly rushed over in a panic, shouting that something huge had happened. Qin Tianlei waved his hand and told him not to overreact. Even if a student had been accidentally killed, that was still within expectations. But then, Lin Zhe said that Su Hong had used a fused guidance technique while fighting Bu Jingfeng. Qin Tianlei still nodded calmly. So it was a fused guidance technique. No wonder he managed to beat Bu Jingfeng. But in the next second, he suddenly froze as the meaning hit him. Then he grabbed Lin Zhe by the shoulder and widened his eyes. Wait, say that again. What do you mean Su Hong used a fused guidance technique? Lin Zhe endured the pressure on his shoulder and hurriedly explained. I saw it clearly on the monitor. Su Hong really fused lightning and fire into a dual attribute guidance technique. If you don't believe me, you can ask Bu Jingfeng. Right then, Bu Jingfeng happened to wake up as well. Trembling, he said, "It's true. I lost to his lightning fire dual attribute guidance technique." Hearing that, Qin Tianlei became even more excited. He slapped Lin Zhe on the shoulder and shouted that the only genius in human history who had ever researched attribute fusion had spent decades barely succeeding. Back then, that person had used a dual attribute fused guidance technique to wipe the floor with every second-rank martial artist, while still at first rank. But according to the Starlight Association's file, Su Hong had been exposed to guidance techniques for less than a month. The more Qin Tianlei thought about it, the more excited he became. He burst into laughter and declared that this was a destined star descending from the heavens. Humanity might truly be about to produce a real dragon. Bai Mu then raised her question. If fused guidance techniques had such terrifying combat power, why were they not promoted? If people succeeded on a large scale, wouldn't humanity no longer need to fear the war against the myriad races? Qin Tianlei explained again that many people had tried it back then, but attribute fusion was not only extremely difficult, it also had a high chance of ruining the cultivator. Even those who truly succeeded would usually remain stuck at first rank for life. But Su Hong had succeeded in less than a month. That level of comprehension was simply heaven-defying. If he really fused all 7 attributes one day, just how terrifying would that power become? As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Tianli fell into his own fantasy again, thinking that if a monster like this truly grew up, he might knock that myriad race's emperor senseless with a single move. Lin Zhe and Bai Mu were completely speechless, and quickly told him not to get carried away. Fusing 2 attributes was already impossibly difficult. Fusing 7 was basically pure fantasy. Qin Tianli came back to his senses, and coughed lightly to hide his embarrassment. Then he said seriously that if they allowed Su Hong to continue cultivating all 7 attributes, and he ended up stuck forever at 3 attribute fusion, Qin Tianli would become a sinner of humanity. But then, Linza suddenly cried out again. I almost forgot. In that fight just now, Su Hong only had a little over 120 vitality, yet in terms of strength, he completely overpowered Bu Jingfeng, who is close to 500 vitality. That means he definitely has a special physique. The group quickly reached a conclusion. Su Hong's physique might be even more monstrous than Wang Tiantuo's barbarian god body. To verify that guess, Qin Tianli looked toward the dorm building, and decided to arrange a student sparring match tomorrow to fully test Su Hong's combat power and vitality. He wanted to see what kind of scene would unfold when a freak like Su Hong faced the 3 strongest geniuses in the training camp. Su Hong, however, knew nothing about any of this. At that moment, he was inside his room, opening his system panel. Then, he poured all the martial points he had accumulated into a spirit in one go. Before long, a strange sensation spread from deep within his mind. It felt as if he had suddenly grown an invisible third arm. It was unfamiliar, yet strangely eerie. When the airflow surrounding his body gradually dispersed, Su Hong's spirit officially broke through 100. In the next second, he suddenly noticed the objects in the room. With a single thought, the bed slowly floated into the air. Seeing that the objects around him could now be controlled at will, Su Hong finally confirmed that he had lived up to his expectations and officially become a spiritual mind master. Just like Xiao Yan, he could now control objects to attack and even walk through the air. As for Xiao Yan's powerful martial technique that belonged exclusively to spiritual mind masters, Su Hong naturally had to find a way to get his hands on it too. But early the next morning, a broadcast suddenly echoed through the dorm area, demanding that everyone gather within 1 minute. Being even 1 second late would cost them contribution points. With no other choice, all the students rushed downstairs, complaining the whole way that this training camp was ridiculous. They had just been ambushed last night, and now they were not even given time to recover. After everyone gathered in the open area, Lindsay finished counting and realized that not a single person was missing. He gave them a thumbs up and said, I originally thought quite a few of you would be beaten so badly you couldn't crawl out of bed. Not bad, as expected of the geniuses selected from different regions. At that moment, the buzzcut man raised his hand to complain. He said that he could have beaten the martial artist who attacked him last night, but the guy didn't even let him put on underwear and kept aiming straight at his crotch. Lin Zhe was so furious he actually laughed, asking him on the spot if the attacker last night had been an assassin from the myriad races. Would he also ask the enemy to wait until he put on his underwear? The crowd instantly burst into laughter, and the suited man even joked that from now on, they might as well call him Underwear Bro. Su Hong could understand why the buzzcut man felt wronged. Instructor Ling was right that real combat never waited for anyone to get ready. But after being exhausted all day yesterday, and then ambushed in the middle of the night, it was normal for people to feel upset. Lin Zhe then announced that he knew many of them were unconvinced, so today he would give everyone another chance to prove themselves. A full assessment would be held shortly. Vitality, combat power, spirit, strength, speed, and mastery of martial techniques would all be tested. After the assessment, there would also be a practical combat ranking. The top 10 students would receive different amounts of contribution points every day, but everyone knew very well that as long as Wang Tiantuo, Lin Xinghe, and Xiao Yan were here, the others basically had no chance of touching the top 3. Su Hong, however, became interested. A full assessment and combat ranking? He wondered how many contribution points first place would get every day. Soon, everyone was brought to the temporary testing field inside the warehouse. Qin Tianli immediately spotted Su Hong, hidden in the crowd, and thought that this kid really did not stand out at all when mixed among everyone else. Unexpectedly, the person beside Su Hong looked proud, thinking Qin Tianli was looking at him with approval. Su Hong couldn't help roasting him inwardly. Bro, you're definitely overthinking it. The person being watched by the Grandmaster should be him. At that moment, Qin Tianli spoke up, saying that he had high hopes for everyone here. Because of that, the student ranked first overall in this assessment would receive an additional reward. 1 A-rank martial technique, or movement technique. The moment he said this, everyone became extremely excited. After all, A-rank martial techniques weren't exactly handed out like candy. Aside from major family disciples, Most people would never even get the chance to touch one. Wang Tiantuo also became interested, thinking that his family only had a few A-rank techniques. It looked like he could add one more today. Xiaoyan was equally determined to win. She had not expected that getting to choose an A-rank martial technique could be this simple. As for Lin Xinghe, he believed that as long as he obtained a martial technique that could complement his movement technique, no one would dare say speed alone was useless anymore. Faced with such a valuable reward, Su Hong naturally kicked his focus into high gear and decided that he had to go all out in this assessment. What he did not know was that this reward had been deliberately arranged by Qin Tianli as bait. The goal was to ignite everyone's fighting spirit and see just how strong Su Hong truly was. Then, Qin Tianli decided to add more fuel to the fire. He directly called Lin Xinghe to test first, Xiaoyan second, and Wang Tiantuo third. This arrangement instantly stirred up the crowd below. Everyone felt that with the three strongest geniuses testing first, whoever came fourth would be sweating bullets. But in the next second, Qin Tianli called Su Hong as the fourth tester. Everyone's eyes immediately turned toward him, and Su Hong felt speechless inside. As expected, this Grandmaster really had his eyes on him. Out of concern, Chen Shan and Li Tu quickly came over and asked whether Su Hong had offended Grandmaster Qin. Otherwise, why would a 7th-rank Grandmaster target him like this? Quite a few people also recognized Su Hong as the last student to enter the camp. They assumed Grandmaster Qin wanted the 3 strongest to go first, then send up the weakest as a contrast to motivate the underperformers through shame. Only the suited man and the buzzcut man had already seen through everything. They sneered at the same time. What a bunch of idiots. You'll all be stunned in a minute. A few minutes later, the test officially began. Before stepping up, Lin Xinghe smiled and said that combat power testing was not exactly his strong suit. As soon as he finished speaking, he punched the combat power testing machine in front of him. When the machine displayed 4013 combat power, everyone watching found it hard to believe. If this counted as a weak point, then they might not even qualify as absolute trash. But Su Hong knew very well that compared to the terrifying speed Lin Xinghe had shown in the movement technique room, raw physical combat power really was not his strongest area. Still, since Lin Xinghe could cultivate a movement technique of that quality, his offensive martial technique could not possibly be weak. Sure enough, in the next moment, a pale green glow condensed around Lin Xinghe's hand. This was his B-rank martial technique, Cloud Shadow Gale Fist. The number on the machine finally stopped at 5,642. The crowd immediately erupted in shocked cries. After all, 5,600 combat power already met the standard of a second-rank martial artist. But what no one knew was that with just one look, Su Hong had already learned this martial technique to the beginner stage. After Lin Xinghe finished, it was soon Xiaoyan's turn. As a spiritual mind master, her physical body was not her strong point, so her first strike only reached 3,253 combat power. But as Xiaoyan began activating her martial technique, her entire body was instantly wrapped in golden light. Then, above her head, a massive energy hammer slowly condensed into shape. This was exactly the chance Su Hong had been waiting for. So her technique was called Ice Condensation Art. Su Hong immediately grew excited. This training camp was perfect for him. He might really be able to freeload his way to quite a few martial techniques today. As Ice Condensation Art fully formed the giant hammer in midair, Xiaoyan moved it with a thought, and the enormous energy hammer smashed heavily into the testing machine. In the next second, the machine displayed 5942 combat power. The crowd below gasped in amazement. Spiritual mind masters really seemed favored by the heavens. Her explosive power was actually even higher than Lin Xinghe's. What they did not know was that Su Hong had already entered the consciousness space, preparing to comprehend Xiaoyan's ice condensation art as quickly as possible. But once he truly began studying it, he realized that this martial technique was far more complicated than he had imagined. It could condense all kinds of objects, not just weapons, but even tables, chairs, and the forms of ferocious beasts. The closer the condensed object was to something solid, however, the more terrifying the spirit consumption became. With Su Hong's current spirit, it seemed he didn't quite have the chops to fully master this martial technique right away. With that thought, Su Hong had no choice but to pull his consciousness back to reality for now. After all, Wang Tiantuo was next. Missing his martial technique would be a massive waste. Soon, under everyone's expectant gazes, Wang Tiantuo stepped onto the testing platform. The surrounding students were all talking about how terrifying the barbarian god body's strength was, giving him an absolute advantage in this kind of combat power test. Su Hong was also curious about just how different Wang Tiantuo's barbarian god body was from his own overlord body. Wang Tiantuo looked at the crowd and said confidently, that they should all watch closely, because this punch would show them the absolute gap between them. With a thunderous boom, his fist smashed into the machine and actually stirred up visible ripples across its surface. That punch made everyone curse him as a freak on the spot. With raw physical strength alone, his explosive power was only 300 points lower than Lin Xinghei's score after using a martial technique. Even Qin Tianli gave him a solid evaluation after seeing it. Wang Tiantua thanked the Grandmaster for the praise, then said that next he would finally use his martial technique. Hearing that, Su Hong immediately focused. So it was finally coming. Wang Tiantuo's offensive A-rank martial technique was about to be revealed before everyone. A layer of white flame gradually covered his arm. At the same time, his entire body began radiating an extremely sharp aura. As a Grandmaster level martial artist, Qin Tianli recognized it at a glance. This was the A-rank martial technique, Ancient Nether Flame Fist. Su Hong was inwardly shocked. He had seen this technique at the martial arts pavilion before, and it cost a whopping 200-800 contribution points to exchange for. At the same time, a cold gleam flashed in Wang Tiantuo's eyes. In the next second, his fist slammed heavily into the combat power testing machine. To everyone's disbelief, this strike reached an absurd 7,534 combat power. If it were just 500 points higher, it would meet the standard of a mid-second rank martial artist with 600 vitality. Even Qin Tianli couldn't help praising him. Good, your old man has been talking for half his life about having a child with Grandmaster potential. Looks like you might actually get his wish. Then Qin Tianli turned his gaze toward the crowd and reminded everyone that Su Hong was next. For a moment, the students began whispering among themselves. The top three had already performed so ridiculously well that anyone going up now would only embarrass themselves. So why did this kid, the one who entered the camp last, still look so calm? After Qin Tianli briefly explained the testing precautions, Su Hong immediately took his stance and prepared to punch. At the same time, he thought to himself that the first place reward from this test was his. In the next second, Su Hong threw a punch without holding anything back. A thick cloud of dust exploded across the entire testing platform. When the number on the machine finally stopped at 6551, everyone present dropped their jaws, unable to believe what they were seeing. Even Qin Tianli broke out in cold sweat. Only now did he realize that he had still underestimated just how monstrous Su Hong really was. In the next second, the crowd instantly erupted. Some said Su Hong was a monster who had surpassed Wang Tiantuo, while others suspected that the combat power testing machine had malfunctioned. Otherwise, how could someone who barely passed the entrance assessment at the last minute produce such an absurd score? The three top geniuses were just as shocked. But they all knew the machine could not be broken. The only explanation was that Su Hong was probably already a second-rank martial artist, making him far stronger than self-proclaimed geniuses like them. After receiving Qin Tianli's permission to use a martial technique, Su Hong took his stance again and stepped back in front of the combat power testing machine. This immediately sparked Qin Tianli's curiosity. He asked Lindsay to guess how much combat power Su Hong could produce after using a martial technique, while Lindsay reminded him that Su Hong came from an ordinary family, so the martial technique he knew probably would not be high rank. But Qin Tianli looked expectant. In his eyes, whatever Su Hong was about to use in this state would definitely not be some low-level martial technique, and he was right, because at that moment, Su Hong had already entered the consciousness space and was repeatedly training Wang Tiantuo's ancient nether flame fist. As the proficiency kept rising, Su Hong could clearly feel that this martial technique suited him extremely well. He was learning it much faster than Flying Swan Cloud Step. Before long, the progress bar for Ancient Netherflame Fist reached 100%, meaning Su Hong had successfully learned it to the beginner stage. When his consciousness returned to reality, white flames gradually surged from his hand. This instantly drew shocked cries from everyone. Oh my god, isn't that Wang Tiantuo's Ancient Netherflame Fist? Why does Su Hong know it too? But Su Hong ignored the discussion. Right now, he only wanted to personally see how powerful this offensive martial technique really was. The moment his fist collided with the machine, a powerful shockwave instantly swept outward. For a moment, everyone's vision was covered by smoke and dust, but they could vaguely feel that this punch seemed even stronger than Wang Tiantuo's earlier strike. When the dust finally cleared, the crowd could no longer stay calm. Someone cried out on the spot, "My god, 9,013 combat power? Isn't the standard for a late second-rank martial artist only 9,000? Is this guy even human?" As for Lin Zhe, he was completely dumbfounded. How was this the combat power of an early first-rank martial artist with only 123 vitality? That useless file from the New City Association was definitely wrong. Not just him. Even Wang Tiantuo and the others reached the same conclusion. Since the standard vitality for a second-rank martial artist was 500, Su Hong must have hidden his real vitality. Their vitality had not even reached 400, so losing to him would not be embarrassing. But soon after, the vitality test showed that Su Hong's vitality was only 137. Even the usually steady Wang Tiantuo completely lost his cool and blurted out that he must be seeing ghosts. How could anyone with 137 vitality produce 9,000 combat power? As Qin Tianlie watched Su Hong walk out of the vitality testing machine, he couldn't help sighing inwardly. This kid had truly blown his mind today. Immediately after that, Qin Tianlie announced to everyone that the practical combat test would begin next, and it would determine the final ranking for this assessment. The matches would follow a challenge system. Anyone could challenge a chosen opponent. When no one dared to challenge you anymore, you would be ranked first, and receive the reward of randomly choosing an A-rank martial technique. But as soon as Qin Tianlie finished speaking, Lin Shenghe stepped forward, pointed at Su Hong and said, "Grandmaster Qin, I want to challenge Su Hong." In the end, Su Hong suppressed all 3 top geniuses in the training camp and took first place in this combat power test. After that, Qin Tianlie personally brought Su Hong to the martial arts pavilion to exchange for the champion's reward. When the front desk girl saw a grandmaster personally bring a student over to choose a martial technique, she became even more curious about Su Hong's identity. In Qin Tianlie's view, since Su Hong already had offensive martial techniques and movement techniques, the best thing to strengthen right now was the control-type martial technique, Flame Cage. In truth, he normally would not recommend this kind of technique, mainly because control-type martial techniques required spiritual energy to leave the body. Most second-rank martial artists could not even manage that. But with Su Hong's talent, learning it should not be too difficult. As he spoke, Qin Tianlie waved his hand and said he could demonstrate it once first, then let Su Hong decide whether he wanted to learn it. Su Hong immediately cupped his hands and thanked him. A ball of flame gradually condensed in Qin Tianlie's palm. Then the flame rapidly expanded, forming a burning cage in the blink of an eye. Qin Tianlie explained that while control-type martial techniques did not have much direct destructive power, they could play a huge role in real combat. Once an enemy was trapped, following up with an attack could easily turn it into a one-shot kill. But he quickly poured cold water on the idea, saying that maintaining flame cage while attacking at the same time was something even Su Hong could not do right now. He would probably have to wait until reaching 3rd ranked before truly mastering it. Su Hong immediately waved his hand and said that if even Grandmaster Qin said it was that difficult, that he should probably choose something else. Qin Tianlie had not expected him to give up so decisively. He nodded inwardly. Geniuses were usually proud, but this kid could actually listen to advice. His future really was limitless. What Qin Tianlie did not know was that the key points of Flame Cage had already been fully recorded by the system. As long as Su Hong spent some time analyzing it later, he could still learn it. Seeing Su Hong hand the martial technique list back, Qin Tianlie looked through it again, and recommended a defensive martial technique instead. The A-rank Earth Attribute martial technique, Thick Earth Battle Armor, was a perfect fit. It used Earth Attribute spiritual energy to condense armor over the body, greatly increasing physical defense. Su Hong immediately decided to choose that one. With his physical strength, plus this defensive martial technique, the result would definitely not be weak. At that moment, Qin Tianlie seemed to remember something and asked what kind of special physique Su Hong actually had. While Su Hong honestly answered that it was the Overlord body, he secretly began to hope. His Overlord body was the strongest in terms of power among the 3,000 physiques. Once Grandmaster Qin heard that, maybe he would pull out a whole basket of martial techniques for him. Unfortunately, dreams were beautiful, but reality was a harsh wake-up call, because Qin Tianlie had never even heard of this physique. Still, Qin Tianlie knew very well that since Su Hong could easily withstand Wang Tiantuo's full-powered punch with the barbarian god body, this Overlord body had to be extraordinary. Even as a grandmaster, he had never seen a first-rank martial artist with strength this absurd. Just then, a ringtone suddenly interrupted their conversation. When Su Hong heard that it was actually Hakimi Nanbei Green, the corner of his mouth twitched. He had never imagined that a mighty grandmaster would have this kind of taste. It turned out the call was from Bai Mu. She reminded Qin Tianlie that the contribution point tracking system showed Su Hong had been wearing a weighted vest throughout the fight just now. Qin Tianlie completely lost his cool. He stared at Su Hong in disbelief and asked why he had not taken the weighted vest off. When Su Hong answered that taking it off would stop him from earning contribution points, Qin Tianlie was so shocked that he could not speak for a long while. His mind was filled with one thought. This kid was a complete freak, and from now on he absolutely could not be judged with normal logic. In the end, Qin Tianlie could only remind Su Hong helplessly that he should stop obsessing over those tiny contribution points. Once he succeeded in challenging the training camp, there would be plenty of martial technique rewards, so he should hurry up and take the weighted vest off. Seeing this, the front desk girl offered to help send the vest back to the warehouse. Su-hong kindly reminded her that the vest was a little heavy, but she did not take it seriously. She explained that she was the martial arts pavilion administrator and a fully fledged second-rank martial artist, so one vest would not be too much for her. But the moment the weighted vest landed in her hands, she froze on the spot. Because the front desk girl had badly underestimated the vest's weight, the moment it slipped from her hands, it smashed heavily into the ground and left a deep pit in the floor. Only after asking did she learn that the vest weighed a full 5 tons, and this once again completely redefined Qin Tianli's understanding of Su-hong. After calming himself down, Qin Tianli couldn't help calling Su-hong a little monster, then said he had another A-rank martial technique to give him. Qin Tianli knew that Su-hong's preferred weapon was the spear, and Yangcheng's Grandmaster Zhang Lin just happened to be a spear grandmaster. That guy had a lightning spear technique that was considered extremely powerful, even among A-rank martial techniques. As long as Su-hong was willing, Qin Tianli would take him to challenge Zhang Lin's student and help him hustle that lightning spear technique out of him. Su-hong hesitated a little, saying that this seemed a little shady, but Qin Tianli snorted, saying Zhang Lin had been mocking New City's training camp as a bunch of trash, so this was the perfect chance to mock him right back. Just like that, the two immediately reached an agreement and decided to head to Yangcheng the next morning to raise some hell. Soon, night arrived. In just one day, the training camp had already repaired Su-hong's damaged room. To better prepare for tomorrow's fight, he immediately sat down cross-legged, planning to train all 3 martial techniques to the beginner stage before morning. Meanwhile, Qin Tianli had already called Jiang Lin, telling him to prepare that lightning spear technique because he would bring his student over tomorrow morning to kick down their doors. Zhang Lin only sneered and told old Qin to stop blowing hot air. Yangcheng's training camp had produced a wood spirit body this year, and the kid had already broken through to second-rank martial artist. More importantly, in just 2 days, that student had trained a wood attribute control-type martial technique to the level where spiritual energy could leave the body. What was Qin Tianli going to use to fight his student? Following Jiang Lin's gaze, a green-haired young man was still training with all his strength. In the next moment, the young man suddenly opened his eyes. Countless vines immediately spread wildly forward, but before long, those vines stopped moving. Then they gradually began to fade away. Seeing this, Zhang Lin reminded him not to bite off more than he could chew. Control-type martial techniques were not something one could master just by wanting to. Reaching this point was already very impressive. But, in Lin Chunfeng's view, he was confident that he could truly learn the technique to the beginner stage within 1 month. Zhang Lin immediately bragged to Qin Tianli over the phone, saying, "Hear that? My student says he can learn it in 1 month. Even I took nearly 3 months back then. That's what you call a monster, not something any random piece of trash can challenge." After saying that, Zhang Lin did not even give Qin Tianli a chance to reply, and directly hung up. Then, he reminded Lin Chunfeng not to win too easily tomorrow. At the very least, he should make it look evenly matched and save them some face. The next afternoon, outside Yangcheng's training camp, several figures could already be seen waiting for something. Before long, 2 figures arrived above the camp. For Su-hong, who was experiencing flight for the first time, the feeling was genuinely thrilling. Very soon, Qin Tianli brought Su-hong down to the ground. The moment they landed, Jiang Lin spoke in a sarcastic tone. "Old Qin, where's this genius you brought? Hurry up and let me take a look." But when he learned that the young man in front of him was only at early first rank, Jiang Lin nearly lost it. In his eyes, Qin Tianli had to be joking. Treating an early first-rank kid like some treasure? This old man had to be losing his marbles. Besides, a second-rank martial artist fighting an early first-rank martial artist was basically a one-shot kill. That was asking way too much of Lin Chunfeng's acting skills, but Qin Tianli did not bother taking the bait. He simply said, "Old Zhang, hurry up and start the match. We still have to go back for dinner after this." After that, Jiang Lin brought Qin Tianli and Su-hong to the open-air arena of Yangcheng's training camp. The first thing he did was introduce Qin Tianli's identity to the students there. But everyone's attention was fixed on Su-hong. They all wanted to know what kind of genius Grandmaster Qin had brought this time. However, when they heard Jiang Lin introduce him with a speechless look, saying that this Starlight City genius had only reached early first rank, the students immediately exploded into discussion. Someone this weak dared to come challenge them? He must have a death wish. Even the corner of Lin Chunfeng's mouth kept twitching. He was a second-rank martial artist. How was he supposed to make this fight look back and forth, then pretend to barely win? Even Zhang Lin felt a little embarrassed now. After all, he and Qin Tianli had an agreement. If Zhang Lin's student won this challenge, Qin Tianli would have to teach Yang Qing's students an A-rank martial technique. So Zhang Lin patted Su Hong on the shoulder and told him that if he actually won, then aside from the lightning spear technique, Zhang Lin would let him choose one more A-rank martial technique. This made Qin Tianli extremely happy. He slapped Zhang Lin on the shoulder and praised him for being surprisingly generous. When Su Hong and Lin Chunfeng stepped onto the arena, Lin Chunfeng, confident in his own strength, told Su Hong not to worry. He would control his strength when he attacked. But inside, Lin Chunfeng was conflicted. He had no idea how to make the fight look evenly matched. If he accidentally crippled the guy in one move, that would be troublesome. What confused him even more was that the fight was about to begin, yet Su Hong was standing there empty-handed. On the surface, Su Hong only replied calmly, "I don't need it for now." But he knew very well that the only spear technique he truly knew right now was the C-rank Raging Sea Spear art. Its power was far below Cloud Shadow Gale Fist and Ancient Nether Flame Fist. Using a spear here would actually be shooting himself in the foot. But to Lin Chunfeng, that answer sounded unbearably arrogant. He wanted to see what gave this early first-rank kid the right to act so cocky. As Lin Chunfeng's attack came rushing in, Su Hong instantly used Flying Swan Cloud Step, flashing aside and easily dodging the slash. Seeing Su Hong retreat behind him like a ghost, Lin Chunfeng was secretly shocked. He had not expected this early first-rank kid to also know a wind attribute movement technique, but in the next second, he gave a wicked smile and declared that movement techniques were useless against him now. Lin Chunfeng aimed his palm at Su Hong and clenched his fist. At that moment, his control-type martial technique, Wood Prism, activated. Feeling vines coil around his ankles, Su Hong was also surprised. After all, Qin Tianli had just said control-type martial techniques were extremely difficult to cultivate. Since Lin Chunfeng could use one, he really did deserve to be called a genius. But just as Su Hong was about to rely on the brute force of his overlord body to break free, the vines that had been binding him suddenly vanished. Su Hong was left staring blankly. That was it? It disappeared after 1 second, but in the next second, Lin Chunfeng had already rushed in front of Su Hong and said coldly that he only needed to restrain him for an instant. Seeing this, Su Hong reacted immediately. He directly unleashed Cloud Shadow Gale Fist and met the attack head-on. As a second-rank martial artist, Lin Chunfeng instantly realized that this punch was extremely fast. Before his slash could land, Su Hong's fist would probably hit him first. With that in mind, Lin Chunfeng immediately changed tactics and used the A-rank defensive martial technique, Wood Shield. But what he never expected was that Su Hong's punch would pierce straight through the wood shield and slam heavily into his body. Seeing Lin Chunfeng blasted into the air by a single punch, everyone watching was completely stunned. They felt like they had seen a ghost. How could an early first-rank martial artist shatter a defensive technique used by a second-rank martial artist with raw strength alone? In the stands, Qin Tianli burst into laughter and asked Zhang Lin what he thought. Zhang Lin was extremely frustrated, but he still refused to believe that strength alone could win this challenge. Meanwhile, Su Hong launched himself forward, charging toward Lin Chunfeng while he was still flying backward, ready to end the fight with one more strike. But to his surprise, the kick only struck the afterimage Lin Chunfeng had left behind. Just as Su Hong felt surprised, a sharp sound of air being cut suddenly came from behind him. Lin Chunfeng had used an A-rank movement technique to dodge the kick and had circled behind him, slashing down with his sword. Seeing Su Hong dodge his slash once again, Lin Chunfeng had no choice but to admit that Su Hong's strength had far surpassed his imagination. If they were in the same realm, he wouldn't stand a ghost of a chance. But the moment he finished speaking, he saw Su Hong slowly raise his right hand toward him. When Su Hong suddenly clenched his palm into a fist, Lin Chunfeng was shocked to find himself trapped inside a cage made of flames. He instantly realized that this was a fire attribute control type martial technique. This time, he could no longer stay calm. He never imagined that a mere early first-rank martial artist could already learn such a difficult technique. But based on Lin Chunfeng's judgment, this flame cage definitely could not last long. As long as he waited for it to collapse on its own, he would be able to counterattack. However, this scene completely shocked the two grandmasters in the stands. What left Zhang Lin even more speechless was that Su Hong mastering flame cage was already ridiculous enough. But why did Qin Tianli, the person who had taught him the technique, look even more shocked than he did. Zhang Lin suddenly reacted and immediately questioned Qin Tianli. Wasn't the student supposed to be wind attribute? Then where did his fire attribute come from? Qin Tianli knew his chance to flex had arrived, so he stayed calm and said, he's just multi-attribute, no need to make a scene. Then he deliberately acted shocked and shouted, look, what is that white flame on Su Hong's hand? Following their gazes, they saw that Su Hong had already activated ancient nether flame fist and was ready to end the fight. Lin Chunfeng's voice trembled with disbelief. Don't tell me you can maintain flame cage while attacking me at the same time. That's something even third-rank martial artists struggle to do. Su Hong did not explain. He answered with action. In the next second, he threw a full-powered punch straight at Lin Chunfeng. Although Lin Chunfeng immediately used wood shield again to defend, Su Hong's fist once again pierced through the shield and landed cleanly. The blow knocked Lin Chunfeng so hard that his eyes rolled back, leaving only one final sentence behind. This is way too ridiculous. Su Hong, you're definitely using cheat codes.